everybody? Welcome to my Ask Me Anything. You know I love doing these, right? Thanks for being a part of this. I got a bunch of good questions. If you are one of my Patreon members or YouTube members and you submitted a question already, your question is guaranteed to be addressed on the live stream. But I will also be collecting questions from the chat. I love the chat. I love the energy on the chat. I feel like there's a very distinct culture to the chat on my live streams that you guys have largely created, and I'm a big fan of it. So I'll be in the chat. I'll be in the chat, but I also gotta fulfill my promise to my Patreon people and my YouTube members. Let me just say now that we're gonna be getting so much of this. Look at this question: how do you pronounce Porsche? I say Porsche. This came up in a recent video of mine. This is gonna be the entire live stream in terms of the comments. Yeah, I say Porsche. I say Porsche. I'm telling you now, I'm not gonna get sucked into discussing this again. Yeah, all right. What was I in the middle of saying? Yeah, okay. Just because I guarantee that I'm gonna answer your question, like it doesn't mean that you're gonna like the answer. I mean, I feel so weird saying that because it sounds like I'm being hostile to my own Patreon people, and I love my Patreon people. Another thing I'll get out of the way right now is like, yes, it's called Ask Me Anything. So yes, you can ask me anything, but I can answer with anything. That's the whole rules. There's only two rules. You can ask me anything, and I can answer with anything. So just keep that in mind. Like, just because you can ask me anything doesn't mean that I can like respond how I feel the need to respond. You know what I'm saying? Like there's no free hits. I don't believe in free hits. Okay. Anyway, all right, let's get into it. All right. I'm going to start with some questions that I got ahead of time from my Patreon babies. Hi Ivan, hi Kyle. It's always nice to see you. Any tips on getting a vibrato pedal that isn't noisy? Yeah, I'm gonna start with this one because it's very easy. The Ultra Shear from Von Gone. How's this for being a shill? I got it right here. This is like not a noisy vibrato pedal, and it doesn't have the like sun faded like treble roll off quality that some vibrato effects have, which I also like. But this is like a sort of a pristine vibrato sound. Now, any pedal can be noisy. Like if you get the Ultra Shear, because I said it wasn't noisy and it's noisy, that could be because of like issues in your power supply. Maybe someday I'll make a video about like power supplies, how to be advanced. So just please be aware of that. Okay, cool. All right, let's get right in. Let's just get right in. So many good questions already. But I'm gonna get anxiety if I don't like get a running start against some of my Patreon questions that I got, because I got a lot of Patreon questions this time. All right, here we go. This is from Impractical Engineer. If you were to do a pedal collaboration with a pedal company for a signature pedal, who would you team up with? Discuss what pedal you would create and why you think that pedal should exist. Oh, look at this. Is the sound only on the left channel for anyone else? You know what? Let me see if I can do something about that. Hold on. That's interesting. Let me see if I can do something about that real quick. No, I don't think I can do anything about that on my end. I'm really sorry. You're just gonna have to deal with it. Some to mono. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to some to mono. The mono is a fine place to live. All right, cool. Let's get back into it. Question about the signature pedal. There was also I'm going to combine this with another question from Jim H. Here we go. As someone who reviews guitar pedals and tries to hack them to do things they weren't meant to do as a rule, do you have any crazy ideas for pedals or features that you would like to see that don't yet exist? From Jim H. I'm going to answer these two questions together. The answer to these questions is very exciting for me and is going to be like a little frustrating for you, because I'm in the very early stages of designing a signature pedal. It's happening. The CyberAttack signature pedal is going to come out. But I'm in the very, very, very early stages of it, and I feel like I can't really talk about it. And some of that is because just like I'm superstitious about talking about it before it's like further along, and two is also because it's in so much the early stages that like there's a lot that could change that I like shouldn't even say. So I feel like I shouldn't really say like who it's with or anything. The company I'm working with is a company that won't be surprising to people who have been watching my channel for a while. Like if you've seen my videos and you know what pedals I like, you could probably figure out what company it'll be. And I have a pretty cool idea for what I'm gonna do, which is that like, I want to have it all. Like I want to do the thing where like it represents my point of view and fulfills some very specific needs I have and creates a bunch of sounds that I needed on my own record. The release of the signature pedal, my plan is to have it be released also with the next Cyber Attack album of original music. You know how like every time you put an album out, you also like print t-shirts that have like the new logo from the album, and you like make new merch that has to go with the album. I want to do that, but the merch is going to be, I have a signature pedal now, and it like I invented it because I needed it to make certain sounds that is what's on my record. So in that sense, it's like going to be Cyber Attack signature, but I'm also trying to open it up and have it do enough interesting things that new uses can be discovered. You know, more will be revealed, if you've ever heard that expression before, so that you'll be able to have your own way with it. And also, it has a name, which again, I'm like frustratingly not going to tell you because I'm like too nervous about how early we are in the early stages of this. This is like maybe a questionable way to have started the Ask Me Anything live stream, where I'm just going to like tell you all this shit that you can't know about, and I'm like not going to give you the details that would make it an interesting thing for you to hear about. I'm so sorry. Anyway, the point is like it's not just called the Cyber Attack pedal. Like it has a name and an identity that it should work if you've never heard of me. I mean, it's not going to be for everybody's taste. You know what I mean? It's not an overdrive pedal. You know what I mean? It's not like my twist on the Tube Screamer. It's not like that. Some people are just gonna find it like repellent. But you know, the other thing I want to do is like you know how JHS puts like a little symbol on each one of their pedals. Like each one of their pedals has like that little illustration in the JHS style. JHS is not the company I'm working with, by the way. I want to do that. Like I want to have a sort of like logo for the pedal that will match the name of the pedal, which is not Cyber Attack. So that's going to be my answer to this. Oh, here's one last thing I can say. Chase Bliss just put out Chase Bliss is also not the company I'm working with, even though I like Chase Bliss. Chase Bliss just put out a pedal called Clean, which is in some ways like the Knobs signature pedal. Like Knobs, the person whose name is Knobs, who like was a YouTube guy, now works at Chase Bliss. He the Clean pedal from Chase Bliss, he named it. It was sort of his vision, and it's a little bit like represents his point of view and his sort of relationship with clean sounds. You know, he told me, I talked to him about it. He told me like he never really fucked with distortion in a big way as a guitar player, and he feels like that sort of left him out a little bit because distortion is such a huge part of guitar playing. But for him as a player, like that was never really where it was at. So the Clean pedal is just sort of about like the things he wanted and did and discovered as a guy who never worked with distortion. So the Clean pedal, it's like a pedal, but also has kind of a point of view, and it like represents a certain approach to sound in a way, or it represents like this one guy's relationship with sound. And my pedal's also going to be like that. It's not going to be clean. It's going to be like cyber and fucked up. But I want it to also kind of represent like a set of beliefs in a way. So that's my answer for that. Stay tuned. Like my next album, this is going to be something I talk about a lot and you hear about a lot, and then like you start to wonder like, well, when are we ever going to see it, and like when is it ever going to come out? And the answer is just going to be like, I promise it's going to come out. That's going to be the answer for the record and for the pedal. All right, cool. I just missed 100 comments while I was talking about that. Any tips for using pedals like the Microcosm or the Maris line that can do so much on their own? How do you approach them to try to sound like yourself, find your sound through them? I mean, I guess here's an answer for this. Like I feel like sometimes you work with a pedal and you're like, I wonder if it can do this. I wonder if I can get this to sort of give me like a certain thing that I can like distantly hear in my mind. And then you like turn a knob and you hope that by turning this knob it's going to do the thing you have up here. And then it doesn't do that. You turn the knob and it doesn't take you to the thing you were hoping it would take you to. At that moment, you have a choice to make. There's like two roads you can go down. One road is you go back to the manual and try to figure out why it didn't do what you wanted to do, and you continue to hunt for the thing you had in your head. And you like try to think about it more and see if there's a way to make it do that, or you just start turning a different knob, or you just sort of like insist on trying to find the thing you can hear. And like if the thing you can hear is really cool, and if you wind up getting it, then that's good, and that can be a good way to work. But the other thing to do is to abandon the thing you just heard and then listen to the thing you just got. And ask yourself, like, what is the song that could go with this? Like, what is the song you could write based on this that is the sound the pedal just made? And I think I got sort of good at doing that version where you just kind of like listen to the thing and then try to imagine the best possible thing that could ever be used for. And I think if you can start trying to do that and you get good at it, you will increasingly sound like someone who can make any piece of gear sound like you. So that's my answer. What are your thoughts on Strandberg guitars? Have you tried them? I have a Bowden Standard, and I really do. I've never heard of any of these. I don't know what any of these words mean. I don't know what you're talking about. This is what the gear questions are going to be like, by the way. Like, sooner or later, I'm like going to start not answering the questions about like, what are your thoughts on such and such gear? Because like, I don't know a lot. Like 90% of what I know is the stuff that is on my YouTube channel. You know what I mean? I'm like frantically trying to make new videos about new shit to keep the YouTube channel going. But like the train ran out of track a while ago. Like for the past year and a half, I've been like frantically trying to put railroad tracks down before the train gets to it, like in a cartoon. So most of what I know is the shit that I already talked about that you should have seen by now. I don't know what Strandberg Guitars is. I'm so sorry. Is that the brand that like doesn't have headstocks? Because I don't like that. I get that like that's prejudice on my part. I don't really like a guitar that doesn't have a headstock on it. I understand there's reasons. I'm just telling you that I think they look like shit. And then I don't understand. I have a Bowden Standard. Like, I can't say that. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't go through life having to tell people like, oh, I'll bring my main guitar. It's a Bowden Standard. Like, that just doesn't sound right. I'm not going to be able to explain this. But having to say Bowden Standard, it's like I don't want to make those sounds with my mouth. That doesn't sound right to me. There's my hostile answer to that. All right, let's keep going. I have only ever seen you play guitar. How do you go about creating drum parts? Oh, okay. This is annoying. I think in the first Ask Me Anything I ever did, I spoke for like half an hour about my drum production technique. So stop watching this and go check out AMA #1, where I talk about this at length. But one thing I can say that I didn't say in that other video is like, I remember when I was first making home recordings and first sort of writing songs where part of writing the song is also making a demo, and part of making a demo is also programming a drum machine. When I was in the early days of doing that, I would sort of like write the coolest guitar part I could, and then like write the coolest guitar overdub I could, and then write the coolest next part that I could. And then when all that was over, I was like, and now I got to write the coolest drum part that I can. And I would just like always try to have it be a monster drum part that like would make the drummer seem like a huge innovator. And like if we're the band ever to play this, it would like launch the drummer into the Hall of Fame. And I realized eventually that that's like not a good way to work. Like The drum part, you should be able to like close your eyes and like hear what a good drum part would be, and then just give it that. In my stuff, the drums are in a supporting role for the most part. Now I balance that out. At the Cyber Attack live shows, I always try to make sure there's a drum solo in it. You know what I mean? Like I'm a little old fashioned in the sense that I like to have a drum solo in the live set. And on the next Cyber Attack record that I always have to talk about, that's still not coming out. There is a drum solo on it that we've already recorded that sounds amazing. But when it's not drum solo time, I just try to be, I just try to write my own drum parts and have them be supportive. Now, on the records, we use real drummers. On this upcoming Cyber Attack record, the drummer's a guy named Ted Poor. On the first record, it was a guy named Rodney Fled. Both incredible drummers. They kind of solve the problem for me because they're great, and they know how to be supportive, but then they also know how to be cool. And the other thing is that, like, what makes a drum part cool is not just like the demonstration of talent. I mean, I think as soon as I say that, I get uptight because, like, I think any successful anything does demonstrate talent. Like, anytime you do anything that sounds good, that is like an indication of talent. You know what I mean? But I guess what I'm saying is, like, a part doesn't need to show off in order to do that. And there can be little tiny things that are cool, right? Like the fill that takes the verse into the chorus. Every song that's ever been written that has a verse that goes into a chorus, there's an opportunity right there for the drummer to do something cool, And if they don't do anything, that's like kind of its own statement, right? Like sometimes the Strokes will be like, no fills. Oh, all right, cool. That's a statement too. I get how they got there. But then also sometimes that guy, Fabrizio Moretti, does make fills and they sound good too. You know what I mean? So anyway, the point is, like, stop thinking that the drum part from measure 0 to measure 99 has to like reinvent the instrument, and understand that, like, maybe the coolest shit you can do is going to be on the level of, like, well, what do I do when I get a fill that takes the verse to the chorus? How am I going to do something cool there? And then the other thing too is, like, obviously you have to be able to keep time, but deviating from time at the highest level can also be like a ultra way to show off. You know what I mean? Like if your snare hits during the fill start to slow down a little bit, like at the beginning of Cult of Personality from Live in Color, that song, the beginning of that song has like 3 or 4 extremely cool things right in a way. It starts with the sample of Malcolm X giving a speech that's fucking cool. Then the riff comes in, and that's fucking great. And then the drums come in, and there's a big drum fill that like slows down as it goes. I don't know if that's like actually he's slowing down against the tempo, or maybe it's actually just triplet feel. I'm not always good at knowing shit like this. Or maybe it's triplet feel that slows down. But the point is that, like, he's fucking with the grid. And by the grid, I mean, like, you divide musical space into multiples of 4, and you have those lines everywhere every time it's a 4 or an 8 or a 16 or a 32. That's where the perfect pulses are. Can you hit shit that's in between the lines that sounds good and not sloppy? You know what I mean? That's another... Start to just listen to music that does that well, and like train your intuition to get why that's cool, and then see if you can start to hear that yourself in your inner ear when you listen to your own music. That's the best advice I can give. Oh, look at this. What has been your journey in regard to singing? We're gonna get to this. I promise we're gonna get to this. All right. Why are you flying your drones all over New Jersey at night, sir? What the fuck is going on? Like, the only thing I ever hear about in New Jersey now is these fucking drones, and like nobody has an answer. I wish I could tell you. I don't even own a drone, so I got nothing to do with it. But New Jersey is my homeland. My heart goes out to those people. I hope someone can figure out what the fuck is going on. Do you use effects loops in your amps? Yes, I have a whole video about this. I do. My primary amp is still the JCM 800 50 watt that does not have an effects loop. I had effects loops put in. I think it's the Metro amps, like super quiet loop or something. But how do I use them? I have a video about this called Effects Loops, How to Be Creative. All right, cool. let's keep going with my pre-submitted Patreon questions. All right. Here's one. Do you use a slide at all? From Nathan K. Obviously not in a cheesy way, but for extended techniques, textures, etc. It's funny to me how often people who are familiar with my channel have to like pad their questions with these like preemptive apologies, where like not in a cheesy way, you know what I mean? Like please do not attack me for asking you a question. Always, it's funny to me, but I also feel bad because I know that's like in response to just how much it seems like I'm hostile to my own audience. And I'm like telling you guys, like, I'm not hostile. I love you guys. It's just like, I'm from New Jersey. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, my personality was deformed in certain ways. That's all this is. Like, The Sopranos changed my life. Okay. That's who you're dealing with here. Like, I remember a friend of mine rewatched The Sopranos recently. You basically cannot be my friend if you've never seen The Sopranos. But a friend of mine rewatched The Sopranos recently, and he said there was some scene where like Tony was shouting at his shrink, where he's like, "Why now? Why the fuck now?" And he said like it sounded exactly like how you talk. Like not even like it sounds like you when you're worked up. Like it just sounds like you when you're normal. Like, I know the point of that show is that like Tony Soprano's like probably a bad role model, but it was my favorite thing that anyone has ever said to me. I was like, it's working. Yes. So anyway, that's why sometimes people ask questions and they're like, not in a cheesy way, please, like don't get worked up, not in a cheesy way. I'm so sorry that I brought us here. Okay. Anyway, but see, look at where this guy goes. It's if not hostile, why is it called cyber attack? Yeah, great point. It is named cyber attack. See, this is what happens if you ever back down a fucking inch. Someone's like, oh, wait, hypocrite. Why'd you name your whole fucking thing? You're right. Exactly right. Okay, let's go back to the question. Sorry, where was the question about slide? From Sweet Nathan, poor Sweet Nathan, who never did anything wrong in his life. No, I never fuck with slide. I never got around to it. Now I'm like, well, when am I gonna learn how to do that? The part of this that's actually maybe more tempting to me is like fretless guitar, the way Bumblefoot does. I gotta tell you, like, every year that goes by, I admire Bumblefoot more. Bumblefoot Ron Thal, the musician Bumblefoot. That guy is like truly, like his ability to manipulate the instrument is like mind blowing to me. And the stuff he does with fretless and the way he's able to like find phrases that are only possible on fretless that exploit the fretlessness of it, but then also still kind of sound like a phrase. He's not just like playing licks. Like one thing Bumblefoot does very well that I admire is that like everything is phrases. Even the fast shit, like there's like melodic information in there, and like it's still language. It's not just like high speed bullshit, like where if you slowed it down it would just be like, well, all he's really doing is descending Aeolian and triplets. It's like kind of just a scale, you know what I mean? He's not really doing that. Like at any speed, the shit he's doing is like, this is a musical sentence that has a meaning. You know, even when he's fast, he's doing that. Even when he's slow, he's doing it. I think that guy, the worst thing you could say about him is that you just like don't like what he's saying. You know what I mean? And like I would understand that, but as a guitar player, I think that's the worst thing you could say about him. He also makes records where he like produces the whole thing and he sings and he writes the songs, and there's like any number of things you could criticize there. But as a guitar player, like I think it's sort of indisputable that like that guy has a message and he's like articulating the message very clearly, and you might hate the message, but just being able to issue messages is an accomplishment as a musician. In fact, I think that's what we should all be trying to do. You sort of got to practice and train just to get to the point where you can now like, you know, form a sentence. Everybody learns how to do it using language. Like we all know how to say, you know, I'd really like to eat some Cheerios for breakfast, if that's what you mean, right? Like nobody ever gets the Nobel Prize for being able to tell you that they just want to eat Cheerios for breakfast. But being able to do that as a musician is like actually an accomplishment. Anyway, So Bumblefoot's ability to do that on fretless a little bit makes me kind of want to fuck with fretless, but then it's back to the same thing. It's like I've never even tried that in my life. So when am I gonna get around to doing it? I don't want to say that, well, it's too late and I can't do it and I'm too lazy to learn a new thing. That's stinking thinking. So I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, probably be a better use of my time if I like finish the record and finish the signature pedal before I took that on. I'll put it that way. Should I try and sell some pedals or should I hoard them forever? You should try to squeeze as much out of the pedals as you can. I have a video on my channel called How to Get the Most Out of Your Pedals. You shouldn't really sell anything, nor should you buy anything new unless you've watched that video. I'm so sorry to be pushing my own videos. I get that that's like tacky. You know what I mean? And I know people don't like it when you say shit like, well, please support my thing and please like and subscribe and please leave a comment and please watch my video. I understand people have problems with that, but literally I answer this question so much better than anything I could tell you right now in an actual video called How to Get the Most Out of Your Videos. What is the worst song you know? Oh, man, I wish I had time to think about this. The worst song I know. Oh, man, I feel like it's hard for me to come up with shit like this on the spot. It's easier for me to think of the stuff I love. As hostile as I am and as like much as I'm a hater and cyber attack and all that other hostile bullshit, I actually just spend more time thinking about the music I love, and I think that's a more useful thing to do as a musician. In fact, I think it would be a good exercise for anybody. I've talked about this before, but I think it would be a good use of your time as a musician to like put on a song you hate and then force yourself to come up with one thing about it that you could say you admire with a straight face, And if you can't do that, it doesn't mean the song was so bad. It means that you failed. You should be able to do it, especially if it's like a commercially successful song, especially if it's like a pop song that sold a lot of records that you hate. Even if you hate the material, like these big record labels and these like Wall Street fat cats that churn out this like very commercially soulless pop music that you might think you hate, they don't fuck around when it's time to send it to the mastering engineer. You know what I mean? So like some of those people did high level work on that commercial recording you hate. So if you're not even aware of that, or if that like never even occurred to you, like that's your shortcoming. So anyway, my point is like I try to live in that world as much as I can. So when it's time to think about a song I truly hate, or what's the worst song I know, I mean, there's a certain kind of like trendy thing that is like, take me to church, like that is a thing recently or in the last like 5 or 10 years that is like pop music that is like has a very strong message, and they're like this singer songwriter is bearing their soul to you, and it's the lyrics is shit like lay me down to pray, whatever, take me to church. Like there's a certain delivery. I not every song that has the words take me to church is bad. I like Modern Love by David Bowie, but there's a certain kind of like, this is going to be really important right now coming up. In fact, might even be an exercise in mindfulness. And like that's not really my taste. Let me see if I can think of a better example. Or there's like there's an Adele song that I really can't stand, but I don't want to talk shit about Adele. Like I don't have problems with Adele. But what's the song that's like, lately I've been that song, I can't explain why, but it really gets on my nerves. And that was a little bit the female equivalent of the thing I was describing a second ago. But I don't want to talk shit about Adele. Like, she works hard. I got no problems with her. It's just I can't handle that melody. I don't know why. Have you ever got copyrighted for music you created, like Chords of Orion recently? I don't know what that means. What do you think about that whole issue, music theft and how AI will affect copyright? I don't really know what you're talking about. I'm so sorry. I don't know what it means to get copyrighted. I own the copyright on the material I wrote. Everybody gets that as soon as you commit it to a material format. So I don't know. Oh, you guys know what I'm talking about? That's the name of the song, Counting Stars by One Republic? I thought I was just like making up a song that does the thing I hate. That's so funny to me. There's like actually one specific song that is that. That's amazing. So it's not Adele? Does that mean I was talking shit about One Republic instead of Adele? Okay. Oh, that's so I'm just wrong that it's Adele? That's amazing. That's amazing. All right, I feel like I can hate on it much more freely now. Yeah, that fucking song. Lately, I've been. The other thing I hate is when they like just repeat words nonsensically to fit the melody. Like, lately, I've been, and then whatever it is. Like the two I've been. But maybe that's not how it goes. Clearly, I don't even know what the fuck I'm talking about. All right. Oh, here, you clarified your question that I said I didn't know. So there's a recent thing where several YouTubers, not that you should know all of them, have gotten copyright strikes from YouTube against them by bigger companies using their stuff. Oh, yeah, that has happened to me, actually. My old band, Sweet Fix, I made YouTube. The first gear video I ever made was like 15 years ago on a different channel from my old band, Sweet Fix. And in one of those videos, oh, maybe it wasn't the gear video. That band also hired the illustrator for Goosebumps, the Goosebumps books of my childhood. You ever read a Goosebumps book when you were a kid? We hired the man who illustrated every single Goosebumps cover. The original run of Goosebumps had one illustrator. His name is Tim Jacobus. He's from New Jersey. He's an awesome dude. We hired him to do a portrait of us in the style of Goosebumps. And then we made a YouTube video about that. And the YouTube video used our own music, and then we got some weird copyright strike from YouTube who was like, hey, you're using the Sweet Fix song Showtime in that video. And we're like, yeah, we are doing that. I don't remember how that got resolved. You know, the band broke up. We had other problems. So yes, this happened to me. You know, I've had other shit. I mean, I've had copyright strike issues. I put together a really, really, really painstaking cover of Back in Black for my video about reverb. Since the first time I ever made any gear video ever that used covers of little songs in it, I knew that like someday I'm really gonna agonize over a cover of Back in Black that's gonna be fucking awesome. I'm just gonna nail it because how much that song means to me and how much I think that song is like perfect. And I also think Back in Black is perfect in a completely not glitchy way. That song is like zero cyber. There's like nothing that's like brutal and hostile and digital and like makes you listen to noise and makes you listen to Bit Crush and makes you listen to shit that you're not supposed to hear. It's like not that at all. It's like the most pure, normal, good ever, Back in Black. And I love it. I love how much it represents like the opposite of the thing that I am. You know what I mean? It's like when Walter in The Big Lebowski talks about a worthy adversary. You know what I mean? It's important to have worthy adversaries. But I don't even consider AC/DC an adversary because I love them and I've always been obsessed with them. But when I was like learning to play guitar from the age of like 14 to 18, they were probably my favorite band, and I learned a lot of AC/DC songs, and I like really, really, really was a student of Angus and Malcolm Young as guitar players, and like there aren't many guitar players that I like spent a lot of time trying to be able to imitate. Like there was only a certain window in my life when I even cared about that, being able to sound like a specific guitar player. And there are only a few guitar players I cared about doing it for. One was Jimi Hendrix. The other was the Young Brothers in AC/DC. And I feel like I got there at a certain point. I mean, you know, it stopped being a priority before I was 20 years old, you know, so people probably got better at it than I did. But I could do it for a while. I could do it to my own satisfaction. And so I also kind of wanted to show that, like, I'm not doing the digital bullshit because I can't play straight. You know what I mean? Like, I can play the coolest straight shit that was ever committed to tape is how much I can play straight, you know? So I fantasized about someday covering Back in Black, and then I did for my reverb video. And then when I uploaded it to YouTube, they were like, this video cannot be published because you use Back in Black. And I thought they were just going to force me to split the money. Like, I've had I've had this happen before where they're just like, the rights holders of the material you covered in your video, they're just going to take a piece. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Take a piece. That's completely fine. And the video gets to live on the internet, and they get paid, and it's completely fine. I thought that was going to happen. This time they're like, you can't release the video. YouTube was just like, cannot be uploaded. So I replaced it with something else. I replaced it with a cover of Good Times, Bad Times by Led Zeppelin. You know, this shit happens, and you just got to make adjustments. That's the most important lesson in life for music for sure, but outside of music too. You got to be able to make adjustments. What did Floyd Mayweather say after every single fight he ever won? The other guy was good, but I made adjustments. Are you still a TPPOJLA enjoyer? Jessifer, always a pleasure to hear from you, Jessifer. Jessifer's YouTube channel is cool. You guys should check out Jessifer's YouTube channel. We've been like YouTube buddies for a long time now, haven't we, Jessifer? TPPOJLA stands for Tropicana Pure Premium Orange Juice Low Acid. Some of the first YouTube videos I ever made, long before the pedal shit started happening for me, were about Tropicana Pure Premium Orange Juice Low Acid. That's a product. That's a type of orange juice made by Tropicana that has low acid. How interesting could it possibly be? What could there possibly be to say in a video about it? Well, I made 3 videos, and me making those videos where I talk about orange juice was basically the birth of the cyber attack aesthetic. Like, I didn't even realize it at the time, but I invented cyber attack because of some shit I had to say about orange juice. As a result, ever since then, the real ones have always shown up and asked me where I'm at with Tropicana Pure Premium Orange Juice Low Acid. The truth is, I drink it less than I used to. I didn't turn on it. I don't hate it. I drink it less than I used to. You know what I drink most of all? It's just water from the faucet. You know, I'm good with like faucet water. I feel like that could be a thing, right? That's like raw milk if you're not a piece of shit. You know what I mean? If like you do not have a brain worm telling you what to do, but you still feel the need to distinguish yourself as some kind of like 21st century new man, you know, without the brain worm. So like raw milk isn't the right choice. What could you do? Faucet water. You know what I mean? That's a hashtag. Faucet water. It's going to be you and me, babe. All right. NJ faucet water for sure. For sure. I actually live in New York City now. That part of the reason why like New Jersey is such a big deal, you know, is because I'm insecure about the fact that I did move out. You know, I am a race traitor. I did leave New Jersey, and so I have to like overcorrect by shoving New Jersey in everybody's face all the time. Cool. So New Jersey faucet water, yes, but this right here is actually NYC faucet water. Faucet water. Okay, cool. All right. How many questions have I answered? Like 2. All right. I owe a lot to my Patreon people, and I've given so little. I'm nowhere near fulfilling the debt that I have for taking these people's money month after month. Here's one from Emma. Is there a part of you that likes making purely experimental music? I've noticed the really blown out moments, like in Listen to Her Heart, is still wrapped into an almost pop structure. I would enjoy seeing a cyber attack ambient noise release where those moments are like the whole point. You know, I really appreciate this question, Emma. Thank you for listening so closely to my original music. You know, if the non-Emmas watching right now would like to know, like, how do we ask the question that does not result in like hostility and punishment? Do you know what I mean? Like, how do I get in good? And the answer is ask a question that indicates you spent a serious amount of time listening to my original music. Like, this is what warms my heart. And so I thank, you know, you spend as much time making an album. I'm sure you guys can relate to this. Like, you get swept up in like so many stupid decisions. You spend so much time being like, well, should it be negative 1.6 dB, or was there something cool happening in negative 2.3 dB? And like at a certain point, it's like, what the fuck was the point of doing any of this? You know, you start to fantasize that like some person somewhere will just like put on headphones and listen to your whole album once. You know what I mean? Like, if there's just like anyone who could ever just like listen to it, you know, that becomes a sort of like insane fantasy. It's like more powerful than the most hardcore pornography. Just like the idea that like someone would like close their eyes and put the headphones on and like listen to every little choice you made. You know what I mean? So it truly butters me up when people are like you released a song called Listen to Her Heart, and like it goes like this. Would you ever do something like that? Thank you so much. That's what it's for, everybody. Like, you know, you start a YouTube channel. The dream is that someday you'll get to do a live stream where someone asks you a question like this. So, you know, I'm very humbled. I really appreciate it. The answer to your question is, I'm glad that it seems like my crazy noise hardcore bullshit is like always wrapped up in an almost pop structure. I cannot abandon the pop structure. I can't. I'm too much of a wuss. You know, I spend a lot of time shoving my macho bullshit in everybody's face, but I'll tell you right now, like, I'm just too much of a wuss to abandon the pop structure. I can't do it. You know what I mean? Like, I still just want things to kind of be beautiful. That's still what I want. I think noise can be beautiful, you know, but like think about how often like Trent Reznor uses disco beats. You know what I mean? There's some intense shit happen on those Nine Inch Nails songs, you know, and he uses some curse words, you know, and he does talk about like some serious heroin addiction, but at the end of the day, you know, it's like still kind of sexy, you know? We still have that like hi-hat syncopation happening there. You know what I mean? It's like still kind of feels good. That's what I grew up on. I listened to those records every single day in my childhood. You know what I mean? Like on the school bus to the cross country race, I would just listen to fucking Nine Inch Nails music because it was like edgy and intense, but it was kind of good and like nice too. You know what I mean? And like it's impossible for me not to want that. It's truly impossible for me not to want that. Like I can sort of act tough. Believe me, I'm gonna keep acting tough. But like at the end of the day, like all I really care about is like I'd love another bite of that. You know, that's still what I want. So that's just me being real with you. Thank you for the question. Here's one from Cortain. I don't really understand like how to say this person's name, but I can't let that stop me. Have you ever considered getting into modular synthesis? Here's the issue with that. It seems like a big investment. It seems like the startup cost is significant. And the truth is that like I don't really buy gear anymore. I try to have gear be given to me. You know what I mean? That's what I try to do. I like write to the company and be like, can you give me this thing? In fact, could you give me the thing and then also hand me money to then make a video about the thing you gave me for free? That's what I try to do as much as possible. To the point that I consider buying gear to be like a personal defeat. You know what I mean? Like I'm not a millionaire. I don't sleep in a pile of money. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm not like, don't tell Luigi to kill me, okay? But I do try to just not spend money on gear because at this point it's like me trying to only live in standard tuning. It's like, what if I have the constraint of I can't buy gear and then it forces me to either use the shit I have in a creative way or just get creative with what I can have sent to me. And for better or for worse, you know, I'm not really in with any modular synthesis brands. You know, I haven't really made connections to music gear outside of the pedal shit. Like it would be hard for me to get a guitar for free too, you know? And while as long as that's true, it's, you know, the modular shit can wait. If you had to choose one Strymon pedal, it's the one, dude, I answered this question in the Strymon tier list. I literally ranked every single Strymon pedal. Like I answered this question with the greatest precision possible. And then I put this on, I didn't even mean to put this on the screen. I think you're safe from Luigi. Well, let's hope. I mean, let's hope. You know what I mean? I mean, I guess I'll say this. If it ever seems like I've turned into like a billionaire dirtbag, I give you permission to turn on me, you know? I've said this before. It does disturb me that like my YouTube members, do we have any here today? If you pay to join my YouTube fan club, you get a little special icon next to your name. It's a little scorpion that my friend helped me design, John Marty, the guy who helps me do the animation. He also helped me design the little scorpion icon that you get if you join my paid YouTube membership fan club program. And do you know what YouTube calls that? Oh, here's one. Yeah, this guy's got one. Look, see how this guy has like a special thing? Aaron, hello, Aaron. Thank you for being here. You know what YouTube calls that? It's called a loyalty badge. Like I don't want to be giving people loyalty badges. Do you know what I mean? Like that's like fucking North Korea. Like that's loyalty badge. That doesn't sound right at all. You know? Like please turn in your loyalty badges if like I become a force of evil in the world. Like you got to do that. You know what I mean? Like you should absolutely turn on me at the first glimpse of me doing any kind of like deny, dispute, defend. Like if I start to do that shit, like you got to turn on me, right? You got to keep me real. I like that right now the relationship is that you ask me questions and then I try to answer them on a live stream. Like I'm happy with that, but who knows where this is gonna go? And like who knows how high the numbers are gonna get, and who knows how fucked up I could get from the numbers getting too high. So you feel free to hold me accountable. That's all I'm gonna say. I am embarrassed that I'm the only one here with that icon and I look like a tool. All right, well, don't go too far in the other direction. You know what I mean? It's not the worst fucking thing in the world to be in the Cyber Attack fan club. You know what I mean? Like I don't want you to make it look like it's only the most emasculated pieces of shit would ever sign up for this. You know what I mean? Like we got to protect the brand a little bit, my man. You know, help me out a little bit. But in the meantime, let's keep going. Here's another one. Gary Moore. Dude, I got fucking Gary Moore back from the dead. How about that? One of my YouTube members is former Skid Row Thin Lizzy guitarist Gary Moore, who died like 15 years ago. How cool is that? Gary, we think about you all the time. I'm glad you're here today. By the way, great guitar playing. All right, cool. And here's another one. Do you like Christmas songs? If so, what are your favorites? I don't love them. I don't love them. I know I'm over it. I am a Mariah Carey fan. I like Mariah Carey. So the Mariah Carey Christmas song is okay with me. I can live with her being the queen of Christmas. I buy that. It's not my favorite Mariah Carey song, but when it comes on, I'm like, all right, now we're doing this. Apart from that, there's some like really jazzed up versions of Sleigh Ride that can be cool. Sometimes I hear a version of Sleigh Ride that is just like Mortal Kombat level jazz, just like a lot of extra fancy shit going on there, like old school jazz style, where they're just like really trying to kill you. Like it was like before heavy metal existed, when like the closest thing to that was the attitude of like some jazz performers. Like I sometimes hear renditions of Sleigh Ride that are like starting to approach that level of like fuck you, and I like those. I hear she isn't a nice person to wait staff. This is Mariah Carey we're talking about. Okay, I can live with that. I'm so sorry to tell you. I'm also a boxing fan. Do you know what I mean? Like, I spent like decades of my life rooting for Mike Tyson. So when I find out that like the worst you could say about Mariah Carey is that she was mean to her waiters, well, that sucks. But like, I can live with that. I can live with that, right? Michael Jackson was repeatedly accused of raping children. That's the kind of shit I had to worry about when I was like listening to Thriller. You know what I mean? And like, I never really stopped listening to Thriller. Judge me how you will for this. Like, I continue to really, really, really admire the musical work of Michael Jackson. He was acquitted. He was acquitted. I don't always know exactly what I think about what he really did or didn't do. But I like learned to. I like my life didn't end when he was accused of raping a child. Okay, like I had to reckon with that. I had to deal with that. So when I hear about like, well, Michael Jordan, he could be kind of obnoxious sometimes. I'm like, oh, that's a relief. Okay, I can work with that. You know what I mean? And when people are like, did you see the part in The Last Dance when like Michael Jordan got sort of worked up about who could hit the quarters against the wall, and he started like betting with his own security detail, and he started getting kind of aggressive with them? Did you see that part? I was like, yeah, that part was fucking cool. I was completely fine with that, So again, like, I don't think it's okay to beat on waiters, and I go to a restaurant, like I really am not. I'm not an asshole, it's not a good look to treat waitstaff bad, but like I never told you Mariah Carey was my fucking life coach. You know what I'm saying? It's not like I'm calling her up and asking her to give me advice about how to be a good person. We've never spoken on the phone. You know what I mean? I like it when she can like sing that crazy high shit on emotions. I think that's like sort of an incredible human achievement. All right, cool. Let's keep going. Michael Jordan took this stream personally. Dude, that would make my day. That would be so amazing if Michael Jordan watched this and took it personally. I'd be like, dude, I get it. You do what you got to do, my man. You do what you got to do. You take whatever shit personally you got to take, you know, in order to just accomplish what you need to accomplish. Do you think learning to play piano can help you become a better guitarist? I mean, I think it can be enriching, but like, I don't think you need to do it. You know what I mean? There's like so much endless shit you could learn to do with the guitar that I don't think you need to switch, you know? I'm sorry, man. I don't know. I mean, I think guitar and piano are both, in some ways, they're the two most similar instruments because they're both polyphonic, and it's like easy to do arrangements if you're a keyboard player or a guitar player. It's like easy to sort of understand what a chord is, right? If you're a trumpet player, your understanding of a chord is like kind of abstract. It's like not something you yourself can ever touch. You know what I mean? It's like Plato's cave or something. Like all you can really do is like understand the shadows, you know? But so in some ways I almost kind of feel like if you're going to learn a different instrument and you're a guitar player, you should pick something that's like more distant, you know? Singing singing might help, because I think singing also can help with your like ear. You know, your ear is like not just your ear, the organ on the side of your head, like your inner ear, or like your ability to sort of like own the note. Like I think that's important. You know what I mean? I think, and I feel like singing maybe brings you a little bit closer to the like, if you're already a guitar player, like singing can kind of just put you more in touch with like the mystical note, you know? And I think that might be more worthwhile than piano. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? I get this question like every other live stream. I do not understand who the fuck is asking this. Like, you're an HR rep or something? Do you like, what is your life that you show up at live streams asking people where they're going to be in 5 years? You know what I mean? Like, do you want to ask me if I have any questions for you? Like, what is this, a fucking job interview? You know what I mean? Like, I hope my YouTube numbers go up. I hope the album has come out. I hope people like my signature pedal, and I hope I'm working on something cool. You know, that's kind of. I hope I'm a better musician than I am today. Sorry, that's the best I can do for you. Oh man, there's so many more questions I gotta get through. Okay, all right, that's fine. We're doing good. We're doing good. Here's one from Kevin B. What's the most extreme thing you've done in the studio that didn't make the final cut on a song? And have there been any times where you've thought, well, I think that's amazing, but people will hate it? From Kevin. No, like I said before, I still, my own appetite is still for kind of like vaguely pleasing pop music yumminess, you know? I still sort of like candy, really. So I think usually that's like part of it. So there isn't really stuff that I cut that was like, because it was too fucked up, you know what I mean? One thing that almost came close was I played guitar for this other band called Farmer. My friends Jeff Stanfield, who's the Cybertech producer, and Jeff Taylor, who's a singer and a guitar player. They started this band called Farmer. It's the two of them and then a bunch of other really cool, really talented, very diverse musicians. And I play guitar on some of that stuff if you look up the Farmer record. And there's a song called Lefty where I take a guitar solo and I use the C4 synth pedal. And I was really swinging for the fences on this guitar solo. I mean, for one thing, it's like maybe not recognizable as a guitar. You know, when a lot of people hear it, they're like, is that a synth? Or what is that? And I I really kind of went for it in the sense that like I wanted to make sure I included shredding, but then I also wanted to include like true bullshit, like shit that is like untranscribable, like non-notes, like stuff where you're just like I don't understand any part of what I'm hearing. It's just like happening to me. So it's like very, very glitchy. But then I was like always trying to balance the glitchiness out with just like true shred. So I was pretty excited about that guitar solo. It's in a song called Lefty. If you look up the song Lefty by the band Farmer and you listen to it, and then you get to a part where there's like a solo and you're like, wait, like, is this what Ivan was talking about? That's what I was talking about. You'll know when you hear it. When I first sent that in, Stanfield was like, I don't know. His first reaction was like, I'm not sure. But he came around. He came around and he put it on the record. And I was really happy he did. I'm so proud of that solo. But I was also kind of riding too. I was like, don't be a fucking pussy. Like, come on, man. Like, I think at one point I told him, like, this was my attempt to write the sequel to Eruption. Like, I think I said that with a straight face. I think I told him, like, once there was a man who released a song called Eruption that, like, redefined what electric guitar was and, like, redefined what the sounds are. What is the array of sounds that we know to be available on the instrument? And, like, it was crazy, and it changed everything. And, like, it was a turning point in the history of the instrument. And, like, that was a long time ago. Well, a new man has come along, and we were overdue for an update. And, like, the solo in Lefty was, like, my attempt. Like, that's, I don't normally say shit like this on my channel because, you know, it sounds kind of arrogant and bad. But behind closed doors, like, I think I was saying shit like that to my man to try to, like, convince him to put it on the record. And he did. So I'm very pleased with that. So the closest we can get is the solo to a song called Lefty by a band called Farmer. You should listen to all the Farmer stuff. You know, it's really cool material. They wrote great stuff. Not all of it is like the bullshit I just described. You know, it's like good songs, good music. You'll like it. All right, cool. All right, cool. I know you guys in the comments are doing a lot of good stuff. I know you're doing a lot of good stuff. Yes, Farmer, the Seattle band. I think we're on the same page here. Yes. All right. All right. Here's another one from one of my Patreon guys. Oh, for real? You know those dudes? Dude, that's why you and me are like cyber BFFs. You know what I mean? I feel like I know you from previous live streams, and I've always sensed that like we're on the same page. So that's funny. Okay, cool. All right, here's another one from Jeff P. Have always dug how some of the heaviest early recordings Slayer are only a half step down. Do you feel that lower modern detuned guitars doesn't always equal heavy? I think I agree with basically what you're saying. I think what I really think about this is that like riffs are heavy or like ideas are heavy. Tunings are not necessarily heavy. That's mostly what I think. Like Master of Puppets isn't standard, you know, and that's like a truly killer record in my opinion. And the ideas are fucking heavy and cool. And the same with Slayer. I think the reason Slayer is heavy isn't because they're a half step down. In fact, I think if they were in standard, it would kind of be the same thing. I think. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm like running a simulation in my mind right now where Rain and Blood is a half step up, but everything is the same. And like in my mind at this moment, it's like still really heavy and crazy. So I think the ideas, like I think heaviness is something that happens on like the level of the idea being a cool idea and the creativity being there, and then also the band executing it. Like Slayer as a band has a feel and has a vibe. In fact, they have sort of an unusual vibe. Like Slayer as a band, I've talked about this before, so I apologize for people who've heard what I'm about to say, but like Slayer does this thing where they're like together, but they're a little bit not tight. But it's okay. Like, I feel like there's a phase of you being a musician where you think being tight is the most important thing. And it is extremely important. And if you can't be tight, that's a musical problem. but you cannot be tight and still be together, and Slayer is that, and like that's part of the frenzied quality that makes a Slayer record sound like a Slayer record. And I think that's also a form of their heaviness. Like part of what makes them heavy is this like sort of terrifying chaos that is like coming at you. Do you know what I mean? It's like it just feels like guys are running at you with like sharp knives that are about to go into your face. And like part of that energy, like part of your body's sense that like, oh, this is gonna murder me, is I think the Slayer togetherness, but only that's like not perfectly tight. They're also a little bit ahead of the beat, and like one of the few bands I can think of where they make ahead of the beat sound like a good choice, you know. And I think the same is true for Metallica. People talk shit about Lars's drumming all the time, and you know that man does have his limitations as a drummer, you know. And I hear some things where I'm like, is that really what the best possible thing was there? But I think it's undeniable that like part of what makes Metallica's best work what it is like that band had a feel, you know. Like I think James and Lars especially, Hetfield and Ulrich, like those two guys share an understanding, and they're able to just kind of like inject their material with a certain vibe that is just like the Metallica vibe, and when it works, it just absolutely works, you know. I'm thinking about something like the beginning of For Whom the Bell Tolls. For Whom the Bell Tolls is one of my favorite recordings of all time. First of all, the bell. I mean, I don't know if the band had anything to do with that. You know, that might have just been Flemming Rasmussen, the producer, or whoever the fuck it was. Whoever produced the bell at the beginning of For Whom the Bell Tolls is one of my favorite people of all time, because that bell just sounds like pure evil. And I love how much I don't understand this. Like, it's just like if you closed your eyes and were like, I'm going to try to focus on what the most purely evil sound I could ever hear is. I wonder what it is. You know, it's not noise. It's not distortion. It's not thunder. It's actually just this one bell. Well, which bell? I don't know. It's the bell they got on track 3 of Ride the Lightning by Metallica. That you hear that bell and you just think like, we're goners. We're all gonna die. You know what I mean? Like that bell rings, and like anyone who hears it, like the first thing you think is like, we're all gonna die. So I just love that like we found the bell and we put the bell on tape, and now we have it. Now the question, what is the most evil sound in the whole world? It has been answered. We have it. We know it. We have the exhibit. You know what I mean? It's at the museum, but the museum is just. It's not really a museum. It's the second Metallica album, and you got to go to track 3 to hear the bell. Anyway, we get the bell. I'm like 3 seconds into this song now, okay? Then the band comes in, and it's like, well, you know, what would you do? Like, imagine the problem for a second, right? It's like when you imagine that you're like in a sports game and the score's tied and like you've got 10 seconds left, and like, can you get the ball to the basket? You know, can you do it? Like, to me, this is one of those sports problems where it's like we recorded the most evil bell in the whole world, we let it ring twice, but then we have to play our song. You know, what follows the most evil bell that anyone has ever heard? What do? Well, that question too has been solved, and the answer to that question is like you play For Whom the Bell Tolls the way those 4 guys played it back in 1984. Is that what Year Ride the Lightning came out? I think it is. They did it. Those 4 young Metallicans in 1984 with their denim jackets and their acne and their like antisocial problems. They nailed it. You know what I mean? Like the beginning of that song with the bell, and then the band comes in. It's just like, yes, they're like matching the evil. They like, for whatever reason, these guys can like, they can marshal the forces required to like touch evil and like to like manipulate evil. They can do it. It's interesting to think about, you know? So, and I think part of that, it's not just because of like what the sheet music is telling you. Do you know what I mean? If we had a perfect transcription of For Whom the Bell Tolls, that's not the whole thing. The whole thing also includes the performance and the degrees to which those performances are off the grid, and the degree to which Lars Ulrich has like a very very specific musical intuition that strikes many people as the wrong-headed, and yet like he could look at those other guys, and I know that maybe Cliff Burton was a big part of it too, right? Because look what happened after we lost him. But the point is just that, like, I don't even remember what question I'm answering anymore. But right, okay. What makes things heavy? I think a big part of what makes things heavy is like, does the band understand what they're all trying to do together? Are they all on the same page? It's like the speech the old guy gives in Squid Game before the tug of war, where it's like, well, there's no such thing as like winning tug of war if you're the weaker side. And then that old guy's like, well, there's a couple things you can do. Does the band you're in understand how to play tug of war and what you're all supposed to be doing together on your different instruments? Are you together in the shared vision, right? As you like charge up the hill together, do you all sort of understand the assignment? I think that's ultimately heavier than tuning down. That said, tuning down can sound cool, especially for like Queens of the Stone Age or someone like that. Like those riffs are tuned down, and it's definitely part of it, and it definitely sounds cool, and it definitely sounds good. All right, cool. I got to keep going. All right, well, this was a Patreon question I got from A Light Shining in Darkness. What is your favorite, meaning you have the most fun or inspired the most jam, combination of gear, pedals, amps, keys, whatever? This is going to be another kind of like let down answer. My answer to this question, what is my favorite combination of gear, is kind of what my signature pedal is going to do. My signature pedal is like, there are a couple combinations of sounds that I need a lot, that I need to combine multiple pedals to be able to do. There are certain sounds on my next record that like use that, and it's crucial. Like I need this to do this, and then after that I need this to do that. And the signature pedal is going to make it easier to do that. But it's like too early in the design process for me to talk about it, and I'm a little superstitious about how early we are. So that's as much as I can say. I'm so sorry, especially because you're one of my Patreon guys. I'm so sorry that my answer is like incomplete and kind of annoying. All right, cool. All right, next question. Is there something important to practicing? Is there something important to practicing in standard tuning so when you were, example, playing a C, you were hearing a true C, subconscious pitch ear training maybe, from Jeff P? I don't think you should be like relying on subconscious processes to make your ear training happen. You know what I mean? Like, I think you should be doing ear training and not sort of like hoping that just hearing shit all the time is going to do it for you. You know what I mean? Like, you should just try to do real ear training. You know what I mean? Like, get one of those little dinky interval testers and like see if you can identify the intervals. And if you can do that, then like have it play chords and see if you can identify all the intervals in the chord. And if you can do that, walk into a Dwayne Reed and listen to whatever song they're playing and see if you can map out what the chord progression is just using chord numbers. It's 1 major 2 4 5, whatever it is. See if you can do that. If that's easy, then see if you can just improvise and sing what you play while you're doing it. Like, all doing those 4 things that I just said is going to be worth a lot more to your ear training than staying in standard tuning. Your question, I'm again sorry to be hostile, but your question to me sounds a little bit like wishful thinking. Like, I really hope I could get this thing for free. You know what I mean? Like, that's not how you ever get anything. That said, I do hear things sometimes where I'm like, I just know that that's going to drop tuning. I just know that that's not standard tuning. And that's probably from what you said. Like, my ability to know that something is like, that's lower than a E2 is just from doing what you did. I would just tell you that like my ability to do that is like worth very little in the grand scheme of my music career. Like the money I make in a month from my various sources of income, very little of it can be directly attributed to my ability to sense intuitively when something is in standard tuning or not. Now, having said that, like, some people have better ears than I do, and some people have like inherent better ears than I do, and maybe some people develop their ears better than I did, and they would say, no, that actually is important. I don't have the best ear in the whole world, So if you don't like my answer, you could go ask somebody with a better ear than me. Rick Beato has a better ear than me. I don't think every single one of that guy's musical abilities are higher than mine, but his ear definitely is. So you could ask him what he thinks. All right. I got one more Patreon question, and then I can go to the non-Patreon pre-submitteds and also maybe pay a little more attention to the chat. How are we doing on time? Oh, we're only an hour in, hour 10 minutes? Well, that's nothing. All right. We got plenty more to go. Here's a question from my man Kyle B. When you were practicing singing by using Tom Petty songs at a karaoke place in the middle of the day on weekdays, do you think it influenced your songwriting at all, or like the structure or anything? I guess what I'm asking is, do you think it taught you anything? Once again, I'm touched by how much this question is like well versed in my bullshit. Like, you clearly have been to a couple live streams before. You sort of like know the lore. You know what I mean? You've like, for better or for worse, you've like absorbed the like self-mythologization. That's hard to say. The mythology I've created around myself. You have like. You get an A on the book report here. Yeah, that is a thing I did. For people who are like, less familiar with me, it is true that I practice singing by using Tom Petty songs at a karaoke place in the middle of the day on weekdays. I myself could not describe my own life or this phase of my life more accurately than Kyle just did, so I appreciate that. Do I think it influenced my songwriting? Yes, but not because, like, by the time I was doing that, I don't think I learned from like Tom Petty's song structure game, or even his like chord progressions, or even his like ability to structure a song. I think I was already like pretty aware of that by the time I was doing this. I was doing this like after I think I had turned 30, probably. Like, I had already been in a band, Sweet Fix, the band I was talking about before. I was already the primary songwriter of that band. I'd already written a bunch of songs where people were like, you're a good songwriter. I mean, I didn't win a Grammy or anything, but I was already confident that I could sort of write a song where people would be like, oh yeah. And I was also already appreciative of Tom Petty and what he could do. The thing I learned about songwriting from the karaoke shit is to write a song in the key of your personality. And I got a little more interested in, and like I came to sort of respect more the kind of like mystical shit that happens when the singer must interpret the material. You hand a sheet of lyrics to a singer and they look at it and sing it. If they're a really good singer, maybe they'll just sing in it and it'll sound nice. But there's other shit that can happen there where this sort of like the persona works, the character of the singer, the sort of like identity of the voice finds a way into the meaning of the song, and I think that is what I realized I had like maybe not been paying super close attention to. In Sweet Fix, I was not the lead singer. I was the main songwriter, but I wasn't the lead singer. We had a lead singer named Tommy Walker, who's a much better singer than me. So I would write these lyrics, but then I would hand them to him, and some of those lyrics I wrote were kind of personal, and I would always appreciate that he took it seriously, and I was happy with what he did. But you spend a lot of time, handing songs over to a different singer. You start to just think a little bit more like anthemically or something, or you start to think about lyrics that are sort of like can pass from the guy who wrote them to the guy who has to sing them. You know what I mean? There's like a degree of like there's I don't know. I stopped even trying to express myself perfectly autobiographically in some of that material. I mean, then sometimes I would try to do it again, but I don't know. I feel like you guys know what I'm saying, right? Like if you write a song and then someone else sings it, there's that's different than if you write a song and you sing it. After Sweet Fix broke up, I decided I would have to be the lead singer from now on, and I had some serious vocal limitations, and I just like started taking singing lessons and everything, and it was like hard, and I was like kind of frustrated, and I was like, oh man, like I don't know if I have what it takes to be the singer. But the thing I kind of learned the most from doing the Tom Petty karaoke shit was that you can make up for some like deficit by writing in the key of your personality, And in fact, there's even a thing where like really good singers can like sound great and like not even be good at that. Like they can sort of neglect that and get away with it. You know what I mean? Like I think Tom Petty is a great singer, but I also think he was made more great, or the thing that makes him great is his ability to just sort of like own the material. And when you hear him say, at the end of the first verse of Free Fallin', where it's like, and I'm a bad boy because I don't even miss her. I'm a bad boy for breaking her heart. I like those lyrics, but I like them even more because their meaning is completed by the sort of vocal delivery of them. That's you can sort of optimize there, right? There's an opportunity. If you're writing your own lyrics, there's this like opportunity to nail that part of the assignment. And not every great singer even has to turn in that part of an assignment. I think Tom Petty was good at that, but like part of what he was good at was that vocally with his singing voice, he gives you a sense of a certain character, the character of the narrator. And you start to feel like that character and you have a familiarity with that person, and that can bring you into the song. I think the lead singer of Thin Lizzy, Phil Lynott, was also great at this. The guy who sings The Boys Are Back in Town. You feel like you know who that guy is. He's singing you the song, and you sort of feel like, I know what this dude's about. I think there are very good singers that I like that aren't even really doing this. Like Steve Perry of Journey, for instance. That guy's got an incredible set of pipes, but I don't really think there's like a very, very specific persona to the guy singing Journey songs. I mean, they just sort of sound like anthems. I like them, but they don't. There's not like a very, very specific personality to the person giving you the news, Or like I think another good example is the difference between David Lee Roth and Sammy Hagar. Like I think David Lee Roth does this as well as anyone has ever done it. The sort of the personality of the guy. Now, maybe you hate the personality of the guy. That's fine, but the strength of the personality is indisputable. In fact, the strength of the personality is like so bananas that like it's off-putting to some people. I'm just pointing out that there's a guy who really understood the assignment. Sammy Hagar, his voice has aged better. The live shit sounds a lot better to me, but I don't think Sammy Hagar's like artistic identity on those songs is as distinct. I don't want this to sound like a terrible criticism. Like he can do shit vocally that David Lee Roth can't, But I just don't think that like a song like Good Enough to Eat is like revealing very much about the author of the song. Whereas like Running with the Devil, it's like by the end of that song you have a very clear image of like who the guy is, So that's what I feel like. That's sort of how I feel about this. Very good singers can like get away with this. I mean, it's kind of like how boxers that have like touch of death power, can like get away with not having other skills. You know what I mean? Like Deontay Wilder. That guy won a lot of fights. how good are his boxing fundamentals? Well, there were some major vulnerabilities there, but he's got a cross that is so good that, like, it almost doesn't matter. And then it did start to matter. So, let that be a lesson to all of us. All right, cool. Oh, that's a perfect transition, because I also got a question from Chris Egon Music about boxing that I was looking forward to doing. This is from Chris Egon Music. Boxing related question. Prince Nassim Hamad is probably my favorite of all time, purely entertainment wise. Who's your favorite absolute wild card boxer? Okay, so I interpreted wild card boxer to mean a guy who's like, there's a lot of volatility and like you're not really sure what you're going to get on any given night. And those guys tend not to be my favorite, actually. Like, I think right now maybe the most successful volatile guy would be like Anthony Joshua. There's a big difference between a good night and a bad night for him. But I'm not a huge Anthony Joshua fan, to be honest with you. And like the volatility is not very interesting to me. To me, it's not like he's trying something crazy and we're gonna see if it works or not. It's more just like he has some bad habits and like sometimes they cost him the fight. And I'm also he gets on my nerves a little bit. We're gonna be talking about boxing for the next couple minutes. I'm sorry if I'm about to lose some people here, but boxing is a big part of my life, and there are ways in which I also think it's a big part of what I've learned as a musician too. And we can talk about that if you want. But I still got to finish this question. What was I saying? Oh yeah. Okay, so after the second Usyk Joshua fight, which Usyk won, I don't know if you remember this, but like, after the fight, Anthony Joshua like tried to take the mic back from Usyk, and even though he lost, he like tried to do this thing where he was saying like, it's actually good for Ukraine that this happened, and like I'm happy that by losing this fight I can give this moment to Usyk and the people of Ukraine. And it was like very unattractive. I remember being like, oh, this isn't good. Don't say that. That it was a very sort of like it reminded me of that fucking song I hated that you guys knew the name to that I don't know. It was, to me, it was sort of like the like boxer who lost giving a speech equivalent of like, lately I've been it's like, it was that. He was like, even though I lost, I'm actually glad. I was just like, dude, you got to just fucking lose and shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? Like, walk out of the ring if you have to. Like, just leave. You know what I mean? Like, it's not cool that you then get to bestow this. Like, just give him the fucking belt, So I don't love him for that. But anyway, sorry. The question is, who do I like? There was a Mexican boxer named Jorge Arce that I really liked. He was a little dude. I forget the weight class. But it was like lightweight or something. And he used to walk to the ring with a cherry lollipop in his mouth. That was like his thing. He would just walk to the ring with this cherry lollipop in his mouth every time. He was like if Bugs Bunny was evil. And I really liked that guy. Like he had a very aggressive style. Also, he was like menacing. You know what I mean? Like the look in his eyes was like, that dude likes to fight. And the cherry lollipop was like just a stroke of genius. His record was pretty good though. He like I don't know how volatile he really was. His record is something crazy. It's like 68-8 or like 70-8 or something. So I don't know. Maybe he's not that volatile enough either. But I feel like he has the energy of what you're talking about. And then the last thing I'll say, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, but a volatile fighter who I root for that I wish was less volatile was Mike Tyson. There's a version of Mike Tyson that was less volatile, and that's sort of what I long for sometimes when I look back on his whole career. I do think that what made Tyson great at his greatest, I think, is sometimes misunderstood. I think he goes down sometimes as like a guy who people think that like he was great because he was this like out of control force. He was this like terrifying marvel of strength and also like wild aggression. And I think that interpretation has some like racist overtones, but I also think it's inaccurate too. Like I think what made Mike Tyson great at his greatest was like he was he's always been a true student of the sport, and his like understanding of tactics I think was sophisticated. And when he was disciplined and sticking to the peekaboo thing, that was like a like a sophisticated defensive strategy that he had going for him when he stuck with it. And I think the volatility started to creep in when he sort of moved away from that and got into a more headhunting style. Which as a fan, I sometimes wish like that hadn't happened to the degree that it did happen. All right, that's my question about that. Have you tried the CXM 1978 from Chase Bliss? No, that's the pedal that costs like $5,000, right? I've never tried that. I bet it would sound good. Yeah, but I just haven't tried it. I like Chase Bliss. I'm sure I would like it. Here, we could do this from my HR rep. What have you learned about music from boxing? There's a lot I could say about this. One thing is that like you sort of can't. It's a long game, you know. You're not going to make it if you don't like getting hit, and you have to be able to get hit and not give up. It's a long road. It's going to take longer than you think it's going to take. When people say, well, it's really hard to be a musician, in the beginning, when I was a kid, I thought that meant something like you really got to practice a lot, and it's hard to be good at a guitar. That's a dumb way to say that. It's hard to be good at a guitar. Maybe I did get hit too much. It's hard to get good at playing an instrument, and you need a lot of discipline, and you sort of have to go through this training montage where you like stay home on New Year's Eve and practice, and you wake up before school and practice, and you do everything your guitar teacher tells you to do, and you really train, and it's hard to do that. That is hard, and you do have to do it, but like that does not even begin to address how hard it is to like have a music career. You gotta go so much past that, and the things that'll be harder are gonna be so much harder than that. You know what I mean? It's like the stuff that's gonna be hard is like the best thing you ever do is not gonna be good enough. You could have the show where you're like, I think if we can really fill this room, and I think if the people who said they're gonna come really come, I think this might change things for us as a band. You're going to have nights like that where like you do fill the room and it doesn't change anything. I mean, there are going to be nights where you have an empty room, and obviously that sucks. And you think, man, I fucking hate playing a show for my parents. I look out and it's my two parents and some guy at the bar. Like, we all know why that sucks. But like, are you prepared to deal with how much it's going to suck when you like look out and you sell out the venue, and then the things you thought you were supposed to get from that don't do it? You know what I mean? You don't get a record deal if that's what you thought you needed, or you don't get to go on tour with the band that you wanted to go with, or the radio station that you thought was going to play your. I mean, a lot of my examples are like, you can tell, a lot of my examples are like sort of based on what the music industry was like in the year 2009. You know what I mean? Like, but that's because that's what year it was when I was taking these hits, It's hard in ways like that. Or you could write a song that's the best song you ever wrote. I remember writing a song called Everyone's in Love, and telling my girlfriend that I had just written a song that I thought was going to like be a hit. And it wasn't a hit. You know what I mean? Now, maybe some people write a song and tell their girlfriend they think it's going to be a hit, and then it does become a hit when they're like 22 years old. Maybe Ed Sheeran had that experience. But, maybe you're going to have Ed Sheeran's life, or maybe you're going to have my life. And if you have my life, it's going to be you write a song that you think is going to be a hit, and then it's just not a hit. Can you wake up the next day and write a song that's even better? Like, this is what it means when they tell you it's hard to do. And I feel like my appetite for this, or sort of like the way I got through it, was by knowing that there's this version of being tough that is like, you can just take the hit and like not surrender. And like, that's like a boxing thing. I've had rounds where I got through the round, I got to the bell with that kind of attitude. Having healthy respect for an ugly win. You know, being able to get something, and it's not pretty, but you stuck with it, and you're the last man standing, and so when the bell rings, you get to win. You know, there's a version of like sticking around music and trying again and again and again, and just like refusing to have the pride beaten out of you that can come in handy. You know what I mean? And getting comfortable, getting knocked around a little bit physically, like for me, there's a connection. And then another thing I'll say is that like, I think there's a connection too with like being able to find angles, and like, in boxing, like you can't just like square off with the guy in front of you and throw punches and hope they hit. Like you sort of have to wait for him to throw a punch, get to the side, and then while he's exposed, you hit him there. Or you throw a punch here, but it's like a feint, and you move and you hit him from this side because you made him think you were coming from that side. Like, you don't just like get in front of someone and bash away. You sort of have to surprise them and find openings or create openings. You know, you can't just sort of do the obvious thing. You can't just approach someone and throw a strike. I mean, if that might work against someone who's never fought before, but if it's like the sparring night at your gym, you know, people are going to be more advanced than that. You have to sort of find a way to get into their vulnerability, and if they won't let you do it, you have to find a way to create it. And the way to do it is to find different ways to approach. You can't just approach from the most obvious way all the time. And I think, you know, with songwriting, that it's the same game. You know, I still like love songs and I write love songs, but you can't just sort of write a song called "This Is a Love Song," you know? I mean, maybe you can. Like, maybe that's what Silly Love Songs was by Paul McCartney. But then even that's already been done. And that was done a long time ago. You know what I mean? That song is like 50 years old. So even the move where you're like, I'm going to acknowledge how much this has been done, even that's been done, right? And then Sarah Bareilles, like, already got to the twist on that, where she's like, I'm not going to write you a love song. It's not just a love song. Like, I like that song too. I like Sarah Bareilles. But I'm just pointing out, like, how much the metagame has already evolved. You know what I mean? You got to find an angle. Like, I've talked about this before, but "Hurt So Good" by John Mellencamp is maybe my favorite example of this of all time. You know, so when people ask me what song do you wish you had written, this is what comes to mind. Sometimes love don't feel like it should. You make it hurt so good. That's like the ultimate angle, you know, where like there's something about being in love where like even the pain feels good, you know, that kind of twist. I as a songwriter feel like that's what you got to be looking for all the time. But it's not just a lyrics thing. I think as a player, there's a version of this too. You know, like we all know the pentatonic scale. Can you use the pentatonic scale and not just sound like some asshole who learned the pentatonic scale? Can you find an angle on the pentatonic scale? I mean, at some point I'm going to make a video about this. Like, I am going to run out of pedals at some point, but I'm not going to stop making videos. At that point, it's going to be shit like the pentatonic scale, how to be creative. So I have shit I can say about this. But I feel like the whole thing is just always finding angles. You got to be creative. And I think that's a boxing thing and a musical thing too. Like, you know what your subject is, but anytime you have an idea, the first thing you should do is think like, well, what are the angles on this idea? What else could it be? If you know, what if I pivot and look at it, then what happens? So thank you for that. I know I was sort of giving you grief before. Nafkiss, man, you got like a fucking real blue chip username there. I have no idea how to even talk to you. Nafkiss? I don't know how to say that, but thanks for the cool question. I know I did give you grief before about the HR thing, but I appreciate that. Do you box in tournaments? Oh man, I wish. I fantasize about doing that. But no. I go to the sparring nights in my gym. That's all. Maybe someday. I'll say this: if I ever do that, like, it's gonna be the only thing you ever hear about. Like, if I ever compete, just the whole YouTube channel is like instantly gonna switch to just being about me doing that. It's like it's gonna be the end of the pedal videos. The pentatonic scale videos is gonna be put on hold. It's just gonna be videos about me jumping rope and like telling you how fired up I am to be competing, and like it's just gonna be that. But for now, I just sort of fantasize about it. Cat House Boo gives me $1.99. Thank you. It's always funny to me when people use like retail pricing for their contributions. I appreciate it. Thanks for the money. But like, it's interesting to me that you're like, well, I need to save the penny. 39 failed musician. Any advice on making YouTube Chan? Yeah. I mean, I would say like, careful with calling yourself a failed musician. I mean, you don't want to. You don't want the belief that you are a failure to seep in too deeply. You know what I mean? And that's also unattractive for other people. Like number one piece of advice for your YouTube channel is like, if it feels like you're feeling sorry for yourself, just people aren't gonna want to like tune in and watch that. Now I'm not saying you seem like that. I'm not giving you grief. I literally I know very few things about you. I'm gonna recite all the things I know about you right now. I can't make out your profile pic. I don't even know what I'm looking at there, so that's a blank one. Your username is Cat House Boo. Okay, that's cool. You gave me $1.99, which I appreciate, and I'm thankful for that. And then I know you're 39 years old. You call yourself a failed musician, and you want advice about following a YouTube channel. Nothing that you've said disqualifies you from having a successful YouTube channel. I'm just saying, be careful with like making failure too deep a part of the identity. Can you find an angle on that? Can you be a guy who's like tried a lot of things and knows what doesn't work and is like very knowledgeable about that? There's an angle. Like if your YouTube channel was like shit not to try, that's kind of interesting. If you're like, I'm going to tell you a bunch of stuff that is not going to work because I tried it and it didn't work. But if you can sort of have a sense of humor about it and be upbeat about it and like not be self-pitying, like there's an angle there. That's cool. And look, dude, I get that it's jokingly. I know. I get it. I have like such little information to operate on. Like I got to do a lot with a little. You know what I mean? I want to answer your question for you, but I got to answer it with like zero data. So I got to do a lot with the zero data. You know what I mean? So also, first of all, like olds can do well on YouTube. You know what I mean? Like the number one YouTuber musician in the world is an old. You know what I mean? Rick Beato is an old. Like he's doing great. So 39 is like a spring chicken as far as I'm concerned. You're only 1 year older than me, dude. So I would say the trick to making it on YouTube is experiment a lot, don't be a perfectionist, put out a lot of different videos where you find different angles on each one, see which one does the best, and then see if you can make more videos like that one. And people are more interested in advice than they are in original music. I get people to listen to my original music by giving advice about how to use gear. I myself am not more interested in advice than original music. I don't really care about other people's advice. I mean, I care about like a couple people that I pick very carefully. You know what I mean? Like when I was a teenager, I really cared about my guitar teacher's advice. You know what I'm saying? But like, I myself am sort of not really interested in like what strangers on YouTube want to tell me about how I should do shit. But it's a winning strategy, you know what I mean? So I just try to give advice that I really believe in, that I don't think is sleazy, and that is like how I myself am living. And, people are curious about that. Here's one other piece of advice I'll give you. The indication of success is that you'll get a lot more criticism than before you were successful. My best videos get the most negative comments and have the worst thumbs up ratio because more people see them. And the more that people see them, the more you have people who don't like it. So you should make sure that not everyone who sees your thing hates your thing. That's a bad sign. But if your numbers go up, but their numbers go up because there's also more negativity than there used to be, that's just a sad but true fact about life on the internet. Don't let that discourage you. All right, then I got to go back to my HR rep. 1337. Thanks for the in-depth answers. Thanks for the cool questions. Thanks for pitching stuff at me that I can swing at. I appreciate it, and also thanks to the cash. That's really cool. I really appreciate it. All right, cool. All right, I had some more pre-submitted ones from non-Patreon people. I'm gonna do some of those. This was a fun one from Perfect Dark 77. Can you share with us your favorite holiday recipes and desserts? You know, I'm like not a recipes guy. I'm not good at stuff like this. I'm not like a good cook. I can make stuff that I like. You know what I mean? If I have to cook myself dinner and I like make myself a hamburger, I'll be like, I like that hamburger. But you know, I'm not a good cook. I don't have like fucking recipes. You know, I don't have like little tips and tricks about this, and nor I'm like a guy who just sort of likes, like, my favorite pesto in the world is like Buitoni pesto from like the shitty supermarket. That's still to this day, that's like my favorite pesto. I'm sorry to say, you know what I mean? Like if I go to my relatives for Thanksgiving or whatever, and like somebody made pesto, I'll try it and I might even like it. But the whole time I'm thinking like, you know, the fucking piece of shit supermarket pesto has something this doesn't. So I'm really not the guy you want for this. But hold on, let me pause 1 second. Discount line Safari, thank you. Any recommendations for stacked modulation pedals? If you mean modulation pedals that like can use multiple effects at the same time, is that what you mean? Like a multi-effects unit? The GFI Synesthesia can do that. My favorite all-in-one sort of modulation value pack is the Strymon Mobius. You can only use one effect at a time, but I love that pedal. And then in terms of like two pedals that sound good if you run one into the other, the ZVEX Lo-Fi Junkie sounds amazing if you run a boost into it. That's one of my favorite sounds. The ZVEX Lo-Fi Junkie is like a chorus or vibrato or compressor, but if you put a clean boost in front of it and just like really hit it with a lot of level, it'll start to break up in this way, and to me that's like the true sound of that pedal. So that's pretty cool. The vintage Phase 100 from MXR will also do that in a really cool way. All right, I had to like, you got to like cut in line because you gave me $4, and thank you for your $4. I really appreciate it. But now I have to go back to the recipes question because I do have one thing I want to say. I was a temp for a while. This was like a long time ago, like when I was like 22 or something. I was a temp at this office, and it was like kind of a good job because like no one really knew. I had to be a proofreader in the marketing department of this like foundation, and the like proofreader staff was on vacation. It was only 2 people. And like I, as a temp, filled in for this week where the entire department, which was only 2 people, was gone. And it turned out that like there just was not a lot of proofreading that needed to happen at this place. But the only people who knew that were the 2 people who were on vacation. So like I was sort of brought in to make it seem like those people need to be here, but like they kind of didn't need to be here, and I didn't have a lot of work to do. It was like kind of amazing. Like I was like paid to show up and like check my email, you know. I mean, it was actually kind of boring. Like it sort of sucked. Like I spent the whole day looking at a computer screen, like, you know, playing Minesweeper when nobody was behind me. But I got paid. And I remember the reason I'm telling you this is that like I opened the drawer to the desk I was at one time and there was like one of those like Swiss Mix hot chocolate things, you know, one of those little packs to make a hot chocolate. And I was like, oh, nice, I'll do this. This is how I'll occupy the next 20 to 25 minutes of this day where I got nothing to do. I'll make this. So I remember looking at the packet, and it was like, use water, or for richer flavor, use milk. And I was like, well, obviously we're going to use milk. But then I was like, it says for richer flavor, use milk. So like going from water to milk, like increases the richness. But what's after milk? You know what I mean? Like what if we wanted to keep going? Like this is kind of the cyber attack mindset. You know what I mean? This is like kind of what I do with pedals and shit too, where I'm like, well, how do we exceed the range of the knob? You know, like how do you make these amps need to go to 11? You know what I'm saying? It's like me and Nigel Tufnell from Spinal Tap all the way. Like how do you make the amp go one louder? So I was like, if it goes from water to milk, then it goes from milk to what? And the thing I got to was strawberry yoo-hoo. I went to the bodega on the corner and I bought a strawberry yoo-hoo. And I was like, this is like milk plus, you know? And I made the Swiss mix with strawberry yoo-hoo in the microwave, and it was like amazing. It was the high point of that day for sure. So that's the best I can do for this. Like literally knowing the kind of guy I am, like you could ask me again in 70 years and I'm not going to have a better answer than like try to make Swiss mix hot chocolate with the strawberry yoo-hoo. See, right. So like a question like this, I can't do anything. Hi, Roscoe's Raps. It's nice to see you. I know we're BFFs, and I love seeing you with these things. You've asked me some great questions over the years, but this is not one of them. What's the best variety of apple? I can't name more than 2 apples. You know what I mean? The green one and the red one. I don't fucking know how many apples there are. If you told me there was like 99,000 different subspecies of apples, I would believe you. And if you told me they're like scientifically, actually, there's really only 2 types of apples, I would believe you. I have no idea. All right, cool. I got to go through some more of these pre-submitted questions. This was one that I got at the last live stream, but I forgot to answer. That's how much these live streams are like taking off. This means a lot to me. I get these pre-submitted questions. You know, I hold on to them. I feel bad if I don't answer them, and then I add them to the list for the next time. But then the list gets longer every time. What kind of experience do you like at concerts? This is from Michael Monkey. Just standing there watching, moshing, socializing, dancing, sitting, and how can bands cater to these experiences? There was a Hard Times article once, which was like guy having the best night of his life at metal show is just standing there with arms crossed. And like that's me. Like I'm a guy who kind of stands there with his arms crossed and like probably looks pissed, but like I'm not pissed. That's just how I stand because of my own fucking personality disorder or whatever it is. You judge for yourself why I gotta act like that. But I'm a guy who just sort of stands there and takes it in. It's interesting to me that part of your question is how can bands cater to these different types of experiences. I don't really think of being in a band as a catering business. I don't really think that's the assignment. When I go to a show, I don't think that I'm going to a catered event. What's in my mind is like, I'm going to see this band do their thing, and I'm curious to see it. Prince once said, music is a spotlight and a microphone. That's it. Your band gets on stage. If it's a club show in New York City, it's the kind I like to go to. They've got about 45 minutes to tell me whatever they want about who they are. And I'm not expecting them to cater to me. I'm just like, you wrote these songs, you held these rehearsals, you figured out what your fucking deal is. All you got to do is show it to me, This is a little bit like what I was talking before about Tom Petty, and you got to write you got to write a song that's in the key of your personality. I kind of just like, I just want to see what you decided, like what's the first song? What's the first time you talk? What do you say when you talk? When's the next time you talk? What's the last song? Like, I'll believe anything you tell me. You know what I mean? There's so many different kinds of bands to be. There's so many different kind of shows to do. There's so many different kind of presentations you could come up with. I'm just gonna stand there and receive whatever it is. You take your best shot. Like you got my attention. So it's interesting to me to just sort of see what the band can do, and I don't really want them to try to cater to me. nor am I looking to get transported, or nor do I want it to be a soundtrack for me to mosh to, or nor do I hope they're going to tell my story. I mean, look, I'm all about, I understand it can be cool when you are sort of transported somewhere, like you do have this kind of transcendent experience. You know, that's all well and good too. I'm not saying I never experienced that. You know, but those are rare. You know, you can do something less than that that's still cool. So I kind of just want to sort of see like what did you decide your band is? And the worst thing is when I feel like no decision was made. You know, the vagueness. I think vagueness is the enemy. You know, like all the guys I was saying I admire before, like David Lee Roth or Bumblefoot, there's always this moment where I'm like, maybe you hate what they're doing, but like you can't deny that like they've figured out what they're doing. And that's the quality that I admire. Is like it's the opposite of vague. I think vague is like the worst thing you can be. And I think the reason I get good and the reason to practice and like the reason to be creative is so that you like can equip yourself to be something very specifically. All right, so that's my answer to that. As someone who's been setting pedals in extreme ways for years, what approaches have you found for pedal boards for playing live? I know you've used duplicate pedals. Any new approaches? You know, my approach is like backbreaking. I have a huge fucking pedal board that sucks to bring places. On my Patreon, I have like a detailed description of everything it's doing and what all the choices are and what the pedals are, but also what the signal flow is. Because part of the reason my pedal board is so big is that there's a couple things on it that can switch pedal order. So I can like put the tremolo before or after the reverb, but that takes up extra space and means more routing, and there's so much cabling that I need a buffer too, so I need space for the buffer. It's kind of like the rocket fuel problem, where it's like the more fuel you put in the rocket, the heavier it gets, which means you need more fuel because it just got heavier, but now you just added more weight too, so you need more fuel. Like my pedal board is kind of like that. You know, it's like a guy who failed the rocket fuel problem. But if you'd like a detailed report on everything, all the choices I made and what's on it, that's one of my Patreon posts. So my answer to this is like I have a fucking big, heavy pedal board that sucks to bring places. You know? It sucks to bring places. The good news is that like I could do anything. I can do anything. You know what I mean? Like, and I use the same pedal board for my show and when I'm playing for other people. You know what I mean? Like I could be the keyboardist of a band with my pedal board and my guitar. You know what I mean? If you need a synth player, like I could do it with my guitar and my pedal board. So that's the cool part about it. You know, maybe someday I'll have to make a smaller board. When I travel, sometimes I just like if I'm going somewhere to record, I just shove the pedals in a duffel bag and use a lot of bubble wrap, and then I don't really have a board. I just put shit on the floor when I get there. That's ugly, but it works. What's the best place to find your music? Thank you for asking. You know, the best place is the place that you like to use, where you'll end up using it the most. Do you know what I mean? Like if I don't listen to Spotify a lot because like the Spotify interface is like gives me grief, and also you know the Spotify payouts, those have been roundly criticized, and I think there's many larger legitimate criticisms of Spotify. That's also part of the picture. But if you fucking love Spotify and you have like Spotify set up in a way that makes you want to listen to music, then you should listen to my music on whatever thing makes you feel like that. If you don't have a relationship with any platform, you know, I kind of like Bandcamp. Didn't Bandcamp just get bought, and like now the new corporate overlords of Bandcamp suck? Is that a thing that happened? I feel like I heard about that. I feel weird saying this shit because I don't even know if it's true or not. You know what I mean? Like this is how bad shit happens. Like I feel like I'm like one or two uninformed sentences away from like selling you guys raw milk. But yeah, I don't know if it's not true that now Bandcamp is like the enemy. I've always liked Bandcamp, you know, and then you could do YouTube, you know, you could just, my stuff is on YouTube as like non-video songs that just have the album art, but most of the songs I put out as Cybertech also have music videos, so YouTube is fine. Just do whatever makes you happy. Thanks for the question though. from Chicken Little. Ivan, have you heard Ginger Root? You might like their music. Man, thank you for the recommendation. I have no idea what you're talking about, but I do appreciate it. Oh, look at this guy. Look at Aaron. People who drink raw milk know how to pronounce Porsche properly. I like how I like how much you're steeped in the cyber attack bullshit. That's very funny. It's true that Bandcamp was bought out, but it still functions as Bandcamp for the time being. From Mark Handslip. Thank you. Thank you for knowing things. I'm always relieved when people know things on my live streams, because there's a lot that I don't know. All right. Okay. There's another one we're going to do. This one was emailed to me from Sam S. This next question is going to be like emotionally draining for me. Terminator 1 is the best in the franchise, and Terminator 2 is pretty corny these days. The rest of the Terminators besides Salvation are unwatchable. Why am I right? There's major problems with this question. You guys remember at the beginning of this live stream when I was like, you can ask me anything, but I can answer with anything, and it seemed like I was about to spend the next 2 hours just talking shit about everybody. I hope I didn't do that, but I said that because I was thinking about this. I was thinking about this question, which I think contains huge disinformation. But what else can we do? What else can we do as people living in this world than to painstakingly, thanklessly go through and try to correct disinformation on YouTube live streams? I know of no other solution. So I will now begin. Terminator 1 is the best in the franchise, and Terminator 2 is pretty corny these days. Now, Terminator 1 might be my favorite. There are things I love about Terminator 1. It's okay with me when people say that's the best one. It's either the best one or the second best one. The things that has in it that are good are incredible performances by Michael Biehn, Linda Hamilton, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'll be back. One of the most incredible lines ever in movie history is in one. One has this very sort of like specific visual style that's kind of sinister and like dystopian, and is just moody and cool. There's a scene early on when naked Arnold Schwarzenegger has just arrived in our time, and he looks out over this city from above, and it's nighttime, and all you can see is like the glowing lights of the skyline, and it's like just sort of amazing and spooky and beautiful. One has, it's like sort of the most vibe. Also, the special effects at the end of one are amazing when the Terminator evil skeleton robot is like charging through the factory. The way they animated that, it truly looks beautiful. It's got this kind of like weird motion. I think the motion is like, it's a slower frame rate or something. You can tell it's a special effect, but it's got real character. It's just a beauty to look at. And one even has like frontal nudity in it. I forget that sometimes, and then I rewatch it and I'm like, oh yeah, this is like an 80s rated R movie where it has like nudity in it. It's like, what more could you want from a film? You know what I'm saying? So I'm fine with Terminator 1 being the best, but that's not where the comment ends, unfortunately. He goes on to say Terminator 2 is pretty corny these days. This was the moment when I knew you were not serious. Terminator 2 was corny the moment it came out. Okay, I would say the number one problem with Terminator 2 is the ways in which it can be corny, and that was obvious right away. Do you know what I mean? Like at the end of Terminator 2, when Arnold Schwarzenegger, the killer robot from the future, says, well, I need a vacation, like that was corny and dumb. We knew it then, and like the shit with the psychiatrist who then sees that the Terminators are real, the one who is like abusing Sarah Connor, but then he finds out that he was wrong. The way the movie sort of, her escape from the mental institution is fucking awesome. And like her doing sit-ups in the mental institution is awesome. And like the way she frees herself is awesome. But, the movie does then in a corny way a little bit emphasize like, did you ever think about some of these therapists could be more crazy than their own patients? It's a tired point. Like that was corny. So it's not that it became corny later because the culture moved. Like Terminator 2 was a blockbuster movie that like debased itself in certain ways to appeal to a broader audience. It's not as like weird as Terminator 1. Terminator 1 is weirder. Terminator 2 is the sort of like culturally dominant force that is just like takes over the mainstream and is like universally admired by like everybody in the world. But you know, very few things that achieve that are not also ruined a little bit by corniness. So I love Terminator 2. I mean, the Liquid Metal Man is amazing. That guy's performance is amazing. The fact that he learned how to run without breathing is fucking cool. Sarah Connor as this like insane badass is amazing. You know, just the on-screen physical presence of Linda Hamilton, how she moves, what she looks like. The physical acting there is amazing. The relationship between the killer robot and the boy is amazing. You know, the Terminator 2 is either the first or the second best movie in the franchise. The fact that it's corny, that like that's just something we have to deal with, but it's okay. You know what I mean? It's also corny that the movie ends with Sarah Connor saying some shit at the end about how like all we can do is hurtle forward on the strength of our hope or whatever it is. The movie should have ended with the thumbs up. You know, the dude sacrifices himself and the boy's crying because he's losing, you know, his like father figure, but the father figure must kill himself in order for humanity to prevail. But his final dying moment is to reassure the boy by giving him a thumbs up. You know, that's some powerful shit right there. You know, the movie should have ended with the thumbs up. Last thing I'll say is this discussion of the Terminator franchise, which is going to be the rest of this live stream. Like by the time I get to Terminator 6, like I'm not going to have anything left to give. It is going to contain spoilers. Okay. I'm going to spoil every movie, or maybe I won't. I don't know, but I'm not going to stop myself from talking about the endings. Like these movies might get spoiled in my discussion of them. So you just have to get the fuck over it. Okay. If spoilers are an issue for you, you should stop watching this and like, you know, go make a little pillow fort and like hide under the covers. Okay. If the spoilers are upsetting to you, then like that's how you should live. Everybody else just like get tough and listen to me spoil some movies that have been out for a long time. All right. So those are the two best movies in the franchise. You know, whether you like one or two more, I think they're both viable candidates. I don't think every other term. What did you say about them? The rest of the Terminators besides Salvation are unwatchable. Yeah, I don't think they're unwatchable. I do think Salvation is the worst one by a lot. I think you got this part dead wrong. I think Salvation is the worst Terminator sequel by a significant margin. I think there's very little that is good with Salvation and many things that are bad. Salvation, to me, is marred by this like very specific self-serious quality that was like highly fashionable in like 2009. I blame the Christopher Nolan Batman movies, which are also like very self-serious and like have a lot of important themes and pontificating. I don't like the Christopher Nolan Batman movies. I'm sorry. I realize I'm going to lose some of you with this. I think those movies are like high-minded in a way that's actually dumb. There's this attempt to be sort of gritty and like dark, but it's not really gritty or dark. It's just like men shouting. Like that's, to me, Salvation is just like Christian Bale shouting. Like his leadership style is just shouting. You know what I mean? Like the character is just shouting. Like there's nothing really there. Salvation doesn't have Schwarzenegger. It doesn't have time travel. It doesn't have a lot of the things that made the Terminator movies kind of interesting and specific. It's just this sort of like, I think, very boring, vaguely futuristic. Terminator 4 is vague. That's what I don't like about it. One thing that is sort of cool is that Kyle Reese, the hero from the first movie, is a kid in Salvation. And one thing that I will always perk up about is the way that these movies and this franchise is able to kind of make you feel sentimental about the relationships between children and killer robots from the future. You know, the potential for there to be this like kind of breathtaking bond between the robot that has been reprogrammed and now is just exists as the sort of like masculine ideal that figure coming to protect and care for a child, like that's provocative. Terminator 4 doesn't do that at all. And they could have, because they made Kyle Reese, the protagonist from the first movie, a kid. And like that could have been interesting, but they didn't do anything with it. I think Terminator 4 is like a straightforwardly bad movie. Most of the sequels are also bad movies, but I think all the other sequels have something going for them, which I will now demonstrate by moving through the franchise chronologically. Terminator 3, because I already did 1 and 2. Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, I think is not good. But it has Schwarzenegger in it. It has, I think the woman who plays the Terminatrix does another great performance. There's a lot of stupid, corny bullshit in that movie. Arnold Schwarzenegger says, "Talk to the hand," to a gas station attendant. You know, that's stupid. The villain is called the Terminatrix. I mean, if the whole movie was just like Terminatrix, I might have been into it. Like if Terminator 3 was just some like borderline porn movie, kind of like the movie version of like a heavy metal story, like in a heavy metal magazine that was about like Attack of the Terminatrix, you know, that could have been interesting. But Terminator 3 is like sort of a generic dumb action movie, but it has more going for it than 4 does. These are the things that 3 has going for it. The ending is cool, where you find out that Judgment Day was actually inevitable the whole time, and the apocalypse must occur, and the true mission is just to set up John Connor to survive it so that he can leave the Resistance. There's an angle. You know, I was talking before about the importance of finding angles. 3 found one angle, you know? So I admire that part about it. And then the other funny thing about 3, if you rewatch it now, is that 3 came out. What year did Terminator 3 come out? I bet I can do this off the top of my head. I don't know, but I'm gonna like figure it out. I think Terminator 3 came out in 2003. I bet that's right, plus or minus 1 year. And it has it's like an early movie that has drones in it. And like when Skynet comes alive and the robots start to rise, the robots that come alive are these military drones. And like, if you watch that movie in 2003, it's just like, yeah. But when you watch it now, it's kind of interesting to see like what drones looked like and what drones were in the popular imagination at the dawn of the drone era. You know what I mean? I'm so glad I can tie this back to the drones in New Jersey that we were talking about earlier in this live stream. It's like, it's funny to me that Terminator 3, which is like kind of a disposable piece of shit movie, it's actually like academically useful now for when the cultural critics of the future want to look back and see like, well, how were people making sense of drones in the beginning of this whole mess? You know, like what were the popular depictions of drones, and like how were people beginning to make sense of drones? Like Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, like has a place to be cited by like those works of cultural criticism, by like serious academics. Like that's funny to me. They're like, Terminator 3 is useful for depicting what a drone meant before we knew what drones meant. You know what I mean? So 3 has that going for it. All right, Terminator 4, I already told you, sucks. Terminator 5, Genesis. I have never in my life heard anyone say anything good about this movie, but I'm about to say a bunch of things that are good about it. I think Terminator 5 might be the best of the bad sequels. It absolutely has like ludicrous vibes. You know what I mean? Like it's having fun with the ludicrousness of the franchise. Like one thing they did wrong was that they made Kyle Reese this sort of like action bro, whereas in the first movie Kyle Reese is like, he's sort of like if like Dwight Schrute was like a soldier of fortune. He's like sort of this like twitchy, weird virgin killer man. You know, he's like a little uncool, except he's good at his job. In Terminator 5, he's like, no, I'm just like the star of an action movie now. That's disappointing to me. But him and Sarah Connor have this like antagonistic, flirty relationship. And there's one part in 5 when they're like forced to time travel together, but they have to take their clothes off because of the rules of the Terminator franchise. And Sarah Connor says, we have to take our clothes off to time travel. And Kyle Reese goes, yeah, I know how time travel works. And like, that's good. That is good screenwriting for a Terminator movie. Like, they're having fun with it. I know how time travel works. Like, obviously I have to get naked. You know what I mean? Like, people miss the fact that like Terminator 5 is doing shit like that. So I like that about it. Schwarzenegger's back. Terminator 5 is also the only other sequel that really spends time talking about the emotional bond between Schwarzenegger the robot and members of the Connor family. In that movie, Sarah Connor and one of the Schwarzeneggers end up having sort of making a little, they have a connection. And Terminator 5 gets that and spends time on that. I'm now going to share my screen and show you an image from Terminator 5. Look at this. Look at that shot. I set this up before I even went live tonight. This is a shot from Terminator 5 of a infant Sarah Connor being led to safety by a Terminator with a rocket launcher and a leather jacket. Now, just from looking at this picture, you don't really know what's happening, and it might seem kind of disturbing. It might seem like something bad is about to happen to this girl, but if you see it in context, he's rescuing her and he's saving her life. And I just think this shot has a kind of like stunning power to it. Like just the woods, the fact that the only color is the saturated green, the sort of unforgettable image of Schwarzenegger in black leather with the rocket launcher from behind. That's like unforgettable. And then the fact that he's carrying this girl, but it looks like trouble, but he's actually saving her. Like, you might find this disturbing, and like, I'm sure there is legitimate criticisms about it, especially with like, America's fascination with guns and like all that kind of stuff. I don't think that would be, I think that has its place, but once again, we're talking about something that is like very specific. This is not a vague image. You know what I mean? Like, there are no images like this in 4. Like, 4 is vague. That's why it sucks. 5 gives you shit like this. Like, maybe you have a problem with it, but like, it's giving you something you can even disagree with. And I do think there is something kind of like unexpectedly beautiful just about the composition of this picture. It does stir my heart. It does make me think like, man, I hope that Terminator really does save that girl. I hope all the children of the world can be saved by reprogrammed Terminators. Like, I hope it works out for us. And then the last thing I'll say about 5 is that like, it has the most time travel. Like, 5 is the one where I think they understood like, this franchise is kind of crazy. You know what I mean? Like, it's got time travel. The time travel requires nudity. It's got Schwarzenegger saying crazy shit. Like, maybe we should just go for broke. So it has the most time travel in it. It reminds me a little bit. 5 does shit with the other movies like Back to the Future 3 does with Back to the Futures 1 and 2. You know how in or is it Back to the Future 2 that does that? What's the Back to the Future sequel where they revisit the events of the earlier movie and they see themselves doing what they did in the previous movie, and they have to like manipulate things so that their other time traveling selves can succeed? It's just like kind of ridiculous but kind of fun. Terminator 5 like, it does a version of that, and I admire the attempt. So I think Terminator 5 has things going for it, and then Terminator 6 also has things going for it. You know what I mean? There were things that disappointed me about 6. The beginning of 6, where a CGI teenage John Connor is assassinated in the opening minutes of that movie, is just, one, it looks like stupid CGI. 2, the fact that they would bring him in as CGI just to murder him. It honestly feels like the kind of thing that happens to a screenplay just because, like, it had a million different screenwriters and it got edited a bunch of times and the studio had a bunch of notes and everybody thought like we have to be sort of extremely devoted to a very specific style of Hollywood screenwriting that is like the Sid Field thing, where everything has to be very explicitly motivated and events in the beginning of the movie have to set up events that happen later in the movie, and everything has to like very closely follow from the movie's core themes. And like, I don't care about any of that. Like, the older I get, the less I care about themes. I don't really give a shit about themes. And like, one thing I definitely don't give a shit about is like a movie that is taking pains to show how important its themes are. And like, Terminator 6 is doing that a lot. So I was disappointed in 6. Also, they kill John Connor, but then they bring in a different character. There's a teenage girl, and now it just turns out that she is going to be the savior of humanity in the future. So it's not that we have to protect John Connor. We just have to do exactly what we used to do to John Connor. We just have to do it to her instead. And that is just like, it's the same shit but different. Who cares, right? But the big problem with 6 is that like that girl's not very interesting. She's just this sort of perfect future leader who's like the most important person in the world, but she has no personality other than being the most important person in the world. And like that's not very interesting to me either. It was kind of interesting in number 2 when the most important person in the world is this like shitty juvenile delinquent. You know what I mean? Who like rips off ATM machines with this like little hacker device and has a Public Enemy t-shirt on. Like it's cool that that's the most important person in the world. But in number 6, it's like, no. The most important person in the world is this like flawless teenager who's like has never done or said anything incorrect. That's not just very interesting to me. I will say that 5 solved this problem well. In 5, John Connor turns out to be the most important person in the world is like an insane lunatic who becomes evil. There's another thing 5 has going for it. 5's actually that's why 5 is like kind of good. Anyway, 6 has problems, but 6 has good things. 6 has things that make it better than 4. It has the return of Linda Hamilton. I mean, that's a huge fucking deal. Just the fact that Linda Hamilton gets to come back, she still has that sort of stunning physical on-screen presence of like a badass, but now she's in her 60s. That's cool. Excuse me. That's cool. I give the Terminator franchise a lot of credit for how unusual they are in the way they show you Sarah Connor. Like in the first movie, I was making a big deal about the nudity before, but that was like a normal thing to do in the 80s. You know what I mean? Like starting with 2 and then again in 6, they like stopped being normal. They're like, what if we turned Linda Hamilton into this kind of just like incredible, what if we give her the physique of a mercenary? It's just cool that they did that. So having her come back is a huge deal. The script did give her a lot of kind of like sarcastic and bitterly resentful quips, and I hate dialogue like that. But I blame the script for that. I don't blame Linda Hamilton. Oh, more money from. Thank you. You give me like $20 at this point. Thank you so much. Can we get the same discussion for the Alien franchise? I'd love to do it. I would have to rewatch Alien. I don't sort of go through life with this much Alien saved in my brain. And at some point, I've started making tier lists. Like I made a video where I rank every Boss pedal and I rank every Strymon pedal. I'm going to keep doing those, but at some point I'm going to get off the pedals and I'll do like every Alien movie, every Terminator movie. I would have to rewatch the Aliens, and then I forget how much there's been with like Alien versus Predator. I would have to revisit that. I don't know how much there is there, but I don't have that off the top of my head. The only ones I could really do off the top of my head with like no research, like I could do this at any time. The only research I did was before the live stream started. I went and got this image. That was it. Like everything else, I just like is in my brain every single day, 24/7. The only other franchise I could do that for is Rocky. But thank you for the suggestion. I would love to do it. Look at this. Thoughts on the Source Audio artifact. My man, we're not doing that anymore. I'm going to spend the rest of this live stream talking about the Terminator franchise, and when I'm done, I'm getting off. I'm sorry. We're not talking about pedals anymore. I'm so sorry. It looks cool. I think they were going to send me one at some point. I might get one. It looks cool, but I don't have one, and I don't feel like talking about that right now. Okay. So 6 has Linda Hamilton. That's a huge deal. The other female character is really cool. Mackenzie, what's her name? She was great. She had my favorite line in the whole movie. At one point, she was trying to save the girl, and she gets cornered by the bad Terminator. And she looks at the girl and says, when they start to kill me, run. And, like, that's what these franchises do well. It's like one-liners like that, where it's just, like purely stated, hardcore, unforgettable. Like, I'll be back. Or in Terminator 2 when John Connor cries and the Terminator says, "What's wrong with your eyes?" That's fucking incredible. Every time I think about that, I'm like, damn, I got to make a point to talk like that more. You know what I mean? Every time I remember the existence of that line, I'm just like, I can't wait till I see one of my buddies cry so that I can look at him and say, "What's wrong with your eyes?" That's going to be the coolest thing I ever do in my whole life. You know what I mean? So 6 has one line like that when the biometrically enhanced woman says, when they start to kill me, run. I wish the movie had more like that. But, you know, Terminator Salvation, the movie that guy said was the best one, it has 0 like that. It has 0 of that. So Terminator 6 has that. And then it has the return of Schwarzenegger. You know, they give Schwarzenegger some corny lines too, but he's the best he is at doing the corny lines in 6. I think Schwarzenegger is actually better at being funny and corny in 6. I never thought he didn't have to do it at all in 1, which is good. I think he did it kind of stiffly in 2. He has to do some corny, funny lines in 6, but he like underdoes it. He just like does it straight, and I feel like he finally learned how to be funny. So I appreciate that. One problem 6 has that every sequel except 2 has is that they don't come up with a new scarier Terminator. This is a problem every sequel has had. When in the first movie we have the Terminator, and then it's like, well, what could be scarier than the Terminator? And for Judgment Day they invented the Liquid Metal Man, and that was great because it was a good contrast. Like Robert Patrick looks different than Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's not a bodybuilder, but then when you see what the Liquid Metal Man can do, you're like, oh yeah, that actually might be more dangerous. So it's new and different, but also plausible that this might be a worse foe. That's great. It was like when I read the package of the hot chocolate and it said for a richer taste, use milk instead of water. And then I was like, well, what comes after milk? You know, I was able to come up with something. The Terminator franchise has never been able to come up with it. What comes after Liquid Metal Man? You know, there have been 4 sequels. None of them have ever come up with something that actually seems worse than Liquid Metal Man. And Terminator 6 also did not come up with one. I have fantasized for many years about producing my own Terminator sequel. I have ideas about it. I was writing a treatment at one point. You know, there's a lot of things I'd like to accomplish, and one of them is create my own Terminator sequel. But I can tell you the thing I've struggled with the most, the hardest part about it, is coming up with a new enemy that seems worse than Liquid Metal Man. Another goal I had was to make the time travel coherent. Like there's a problem with the way 1 and 2 both handle time travel, where Terminator 1 does like the circular version of time travel, where the future causes the past. You find out at the end with the photograph that, like, even though Kyle Reese was sent back to prevent Judgment Day, it seems like the events of 1 actually are going to set up Judgment Day, because now John Connor has been engendered in Sarah Connor by Kyle Reese with the photograph that Kyle Reese gives to John. It's like the whole thing causes itself, and that's like how time travel is formulated in 1. But in 2, the whole point is that there's like multiple futures, and you can like change the future. But that kind of doesn't really make sense either, because like, you know, if you like change causality, like you're sort of creating a new branching reality. But the people that sent it's like, why would the robots do it, right? If they're sending someone back, that is going to create a new reality, and then the robots that sent their own guy back, they're not going to exist in the new reality because it's a different branch, and they're stuck on the original branch. So it's like, I mean, maybe there's a way to move between branches, but like it's difficult to actually get into the weeds there without coming up with like paradoxes. One of the goals I had for my treatment of a Terminator sequel would be to solve that problem, and I honestly think I came up with something. Like, if this shit ever happens and I ever finish my Terminator sequel, I like came up with this crazy idea that actually makes both Terminators 1 and 2 like logically coherent. That was easier than coming up with a Terminator villain that is scarier than Liquid Metal Man. So as you can see, I spent a lot of time on this. I am a Terminator completist. You know, every movie, every sequel that ever gets made, I don't think they're going to make anymore because the box office numbers for 6 weren't that good. You know, it's not my fault. I saw it on opening night. Even though I've had my problems, I'm going to see every movie that ever comes out. Those movies mean a lot to me. The reason I use the Terminator action figures so much in my videos is because that franchise is special to me. You know, I'm glad I got to talk about it. you know, at some point, like 45 minutes ago, I kind of stopped paying attention to the comments. I got a little fired up about talking about the Terminator movie, so I apologize that you know, I sort of started ignoring you at a certain point. You know, but thanks as always for being a part of this. I appreciate it. Look at this comment. Magneto would be better than both. Haha. I do agree that Magneto is one of the great villain characters. Also, maybe not a villain. You know, the older I get, the more I just think, you know, Magneto, you were right all along. So I'm with you on that. Anyway, thank you for being a part of this. You know, I love doing these live streams. Thank you for submitting the questions. If you submitted one of the questions where and then I got sort of hostile, and I wasn't really being hostile. It's just that's just for the show. You know what I mean? On some level, all we're doing here is professional wrestling. You know, and somebody's got to be the heel. So thank you for being a part of this. And you know, thank you especially to the people who gave me those monies. You know, I really appreciate that too. That's very generous of you. Thank you very much. And now it's time to say goodbye.